Lars Lindstrom, glad we're doing it.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
We're getting you off the back of maybe your best professional year ever.
Yeah, no maybe about it. Yeah, 100%. The stresses were, of course, in Supercross, when Chase, would have the win wrapped up and then something would happen. It was almost like Groundhog Day, Is it, all on us? Is it all on him? In 2004, I was building Ricky's practice bikes. I was just like a dip kid, that didn't know. I just raced and rode and, but then when I saw the way that like Goose, lived and worked and Shane Drew and Ron Wood, all the guys at Honda, Cliff White, and that's when I fell in love with the team. Hunter was trying some parts on his bike and Jett's like done riding. And he's like, hey, Jett, come over here and test Hunter's bike. And I want you to see if you feel whatever it is that Hunter's feeling. And he's like, no, I'm good. I'm done. Darren can just be like, let me rephrase that. Get your ass over here and ride Hunter's bike and tell us what you think.
I met a gypsy.
Now, if you've been following the podcast recently, you would know that we're on a massive health kick as we get ready to take on World Vets at Glen Helen in November of 2023. Athletic Greens is not only an all-in-one formula that helps me just cover all my nutritional bases, it's also the first healthy habit that I have that starts every single day. AG1 is packed with 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food sourced ingredients of the highest quality that are able to offer gut health support, mood support, can affect your energy each day, and contribute to overall healthier looking hair and skin. Lars Lindstrom is joining us for this because it's potentially the final podcast for the year, mate. And been wanting to do this one for a long time. Glad we're doing it.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to be here. It's cool to see the whole Gypsy Tales type of deal there. That and I know that you've been doing it for a while, and it looks really, really good. So excited to be here.
Oh, appreciate it, mate. So we're getting you off the back of maybe your best professional year ever. Could be. Is it safe to assume that?
Yeah, no maybe about it. Yeah, 100%. I mean, there was really only a few tiny things that could have been better. I guess we could have won all 7, championships that were available with, the SMX 250 title, which, coming into this year, we weren't even sure how big of a deal it was, So really, to win all 3 Supercross championships and both outdoor titles has never been done by Honda, by anybody. So the only thing we could possibly do better is win the SMX title, which that would be really greedy to think that you can do all that. And so for me, this past year, I can't see it getting any better. And hopefully we can just, what I've been saying is just try to, stay on the wave and just keep it going as long as we can. I think we can for a long time with the riders that we have and the team that we have.
Man, what a crazy juxtaposition to 20 years of nothing. And then 1 year of everything.
Yeah.
It's like just grind and grind and grind. And man, I'm like preparing for this, just thinking about all of the amazing riders that have gone through HRC in the time since the last title. And it's like, not like the talent wasn't there. It's not like the team wasn't there. It's just that hard to win these championships, you just got to have everything so right. And then, from nothing to everything.
Yeah, I kind of was, thinking of it as we had so much bad luck and these things happen, not just bad luck, but, we maybe weren't the best compared to some of the guys that were winning the championships, but it wasn't for lack of trying. We worked our ass off the whole time. The years that even I wasn't there when I was working with Chad, the guys were doing the same thing, trying to every year look at themselves and see what needs to be better, what we could have improved on. You look at the teams that were winning at the time. For a while it was like RV or someone like gets in there, and they start winning, and then the next guy to win maybe it was like Anderson or something, 17. I can't remember, something like that. And so then it's like, okay, the Alden Baker program, that's it.
That's it. That's the only way to win.
Yeah, totally. You know, like you got to do it that way. And if you're not, then you're not going to win from now on, basically. And it kind of makes sense when you look at it. You're like, yeah, that's, you know, a proven way to do it. And having all the guys battling during the week and preparing and doing all that, you know, could raise them to a level. But then all of a sudden you do it a completely different way, or somebody else does it a different way. So it kind of throws everything out of whack, you know. So yeah, like I said, 20 years to not win and then to win everything 1 year is crazy. Yeah, nobody's, you know, nobody's happier than me, but I'd like to think that. But you know, there's so many people that have been trying for so long, and it's just so nice to get, you know, that off our back and then try to just focus now on staying there.
It's funny, like, people, you don't have context. Like, the average fan probably doesn't have context about, like, the group of people that have been working on making Honda a force in motocross, like, for these last 20 years that they weren't winning. You know, like, it really hit home for me at Loretta's. Like, I met Bill Savino there, and so we started chatting, and it's like he's been so involved in the company for so long on, like, the management business sort of area, but, like, still involved in the race team. And it's like you could even see how much it meant to him, like, talking about it. And that gave me a totally fresh perspective. Like, I'm so used to just, you're at the races, you see the race team, you know the race team, like, you kind of get to know the people, and you think, oh, it must mean so much to them. But then, yeah, there's so many people on the corporate side and the back end side that, you know, they're not as visible to, like, the industry or to the fan, but there's just so many people like Bill that are involved in Honda. Like, that really gave me perspective of like the effort that goes into winning those championships.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, because not even, you know, Bill's not in our department anymore, but he was there for a bit, and would have liked to have him a little bit longer. But yeah, obviously he's super close to us, you know, on the racing side. And then just all the different departments that, you know, the race team is, if you go by anybody's cubicle at Honda, doesn't matter what division, could be, you know, auto, you know, marketing, or any of those things. And for the most part, definitely the power sports and products guys, marine, all those, there will be a poster of racing, almost every one of them, you know, and it's usually our riders, you know. It's if it wasn't Kenny, it was, you know, now it's Jett and Hunter and the boys. And so it means a lot to the company.
Yeah.
And it's you know, it's just kind of a way for the people to show, you know, they kind of get in deep with the company, you know, like they have a lot of emotionally invested into the company, and it becomes something that they really are part of. So it's cool when, you know, those kind of people get rewarded with, you know, finally some results, you know, and then being able to, even in Japan, you know, we're just in Japan, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we went through in Kumamoto, down in the southern part of Japan, is the factory where the CRF is produced, and the assembly line development, everything's there. It's a big facility. And I mean, we went through different divisions there, you know, the one division, the assembly line, the engine assembly, the even where they press the tanks, you know, the titanium, and they do all of those things. And everywhere we went into, there was just a big, like, group of them that work in that area. And as soon as we walked in, standing ovation.
No way.
Like, I don't know how many, 10 probably. It was super cool. There was a machine shop and everybody in there stoked, you know. And then there's the posters up on the walls and things like that I helped, you know, get over there. The guys from HRC or KMO, as it's called, on the southern part, HRC is in Tokyo. They're, you know, asking, hey, can you send us some posters? Can you send us this? And so, you know, I'm having to organize that and through our guys, and then you see them there, and everybody's so stoked just for one thing, you know, like, that makes it all worth it, you know, because then you walk in there and then they see the boys, and it's like they've never seen, you know, they're so far removed from any of that. So for them to see them, like, in the flesh and get to, like, you know, say hi to them, take a picture with them, like that whole experience was super special.
Yeah, and it just gives you such a sense of how many hands touched the bike. Like the finished product, what gets you on the racetrack, or not just the bike itself, but in terms of the people it takes to get those riders on track, and the personnel and the time, and there's so much random stuff that the average person would just not see or expect, So it must have just been such a cool thing to live through.
Yeah, no, it was really something that, I don't know, I've said it before, like, I don't know how that my career can get, like, I've kind of peaked like real quick. But so yeah, the goal is obviously to stay here and keep it going, and as I kind of alluded to, like our future is so strong, because Jett's 20, Hunter's 24, Joe's 21, Chance is 18. Like we have such a young team, but we have a freaking strong team too.
Yeah.
And the amount that the boys are able to be involved in production development for the future bikes is going to be something that's going to help, I think, everyone, and it's going to help them, to be comfortable in the next version. And then, so hopefully they can stay with us for a very long time. And I know that our goal and what they've told us too is that they will stay with us for their career.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen very often, but I really think that in this case it could.
Well, for all the indications I've got is like that's basically the way that they see their career going. And you think about the implications that has for Honda as a manufacturer. Like, you see what Roger and Dunge did for a production KTM. It's just crazy. And especially operating on like the Austrian timescale is a bit different to the Japanese timescale. But that problem is kind of circumvented when you're dealing with a 10-year career. Like 10 years and Jett's 30. That's insane, Like Tomac was in his prime at 30. So it's like, even working on I guess you could say a slower timescale, you've just got so much time to work with those guys and like fine tune the motorcycle. Then you got Darren as well. You've kind of got like a 3-rider team, even though it's 2 riders. So yeah, it's such a really cool time. And it's like like the meme you see on Instagram of the dude picking, and there's like the diamond, and he's like turned around and just gone back. It's like, I'm sure that's how Honda felt for 19 years,
Yeah, no, for sure. It's been a long time waiting for something like this. And so it's a great time for us at Honda right now.
How is it for you personally to manage the year? Like, every time I see you, you're so chill and you're always like cruising, but was it a stressful year on your end, or was it almost like you guys did all the work and it unfolded the way that you'd hoped it unfolded, in a sense?
The stress was kind of in different areas that it's been in the the previous years. It's only my second year as manager, but I worked real close with Eric Kehoe the years before that when I was crew chief. And so, there's different stress. Like, when this bike was new in 21, there's the stress of developing that and just getting parts at the time, with the COVID situation and all that. That was, a huge undertaking and just trying to make it all happen, and then on top of that, trying to develop the bike to be good. So, and obviously, different riders, different stresses, when you're dealing with a guy like, for example, like Ken Roxon or something like that, what he needs, and trying to get him to a spot where he can win. And then it was a little bit different than Chase, who's they're both quite a bit different than the brothers, who they all demand
a different thing.
And obviously the best for them, it's not the same for all of them. So trying to figure that out. This year, though, I feel like it was the third generation or third year of this current generation.
Yeah.
Yep. And so I think that we did, we pushed really hard after the 22 season, developing with Japan and pushed them for improvements. And they really delivered, I think. So that was a huge help. And I think that we came into the year pretty confident. But yeah, the stresses were, of course, in Supercross when Chase, would have, the win wrapped up and then something would happen. It was almost like Groundhog Day,
Yeah.
And trying to figure out what was going on, like what is it, all on us? Is it all on him? Is it a combination of both? And I think we all kind of took it as, probably a combination. And so we never stopped trying to get him happier and get him more comfortable. And to a point, I think that where he got really comfortable, where he'd be gone, and still pushing hard. And then maybe the track would go away or something, and something would happen. But it was that was really stressful. I mean, the year before that in the outdoors, just trying to figure out some way to win this championship. I mean, I racked my brain for the entire summer, especially towards the end there when it was so close. I mean, we're just a point one weekend, and then 3 points, and then back to a point, and then leading a little bit too, and trying to figure out some way to get an advantage, and what is that, and
what'd that look like for you? Like, where does your brain go? Like, rewind back to that summer, and just like, what are you thinking of as like a thing that you can do as a team to like get an advantage?
For me, it was, trying to work with the team on how can we get a whole shot every time. And then at some point, it didn't really matter that much anymore because they were so much better than everyone. It seemed like that they were getting,
it didn't matter where they
every
were.
time. Yeah. And Eli would be right there. Just trying to work on getting the bike better so that Chase could, go faster without taking as many chances or being just more comfortable. Getting him in the right, mindset to where he was, really confident and doing his thing without really I'm not going to go up to the rider and be like, bro, this is what you got to do. Like this, you're
not like a hype man.
Everybody wants to be like that high school coach that comes in there and just gets their guys motivated and
makes the difference.
And they go out there and just kick everybody's ass. Like that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
And maybe sometimes that happens, but reality is that you just try to make everything the best you can to give them the opportunity to perform, and sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't, but yeah, those last 2 rounds, Ironman, it was like if we won both motos, we could have gone into the last moto with enough of a lead to just get second and win, or the swing was the complete opposite. If we, so I think we won, or Eli won the first moto. If he would have won the second one, it would have been pretty much game over. And then Chase won the second moto, so we brought it right back again to 1 point. And so then it was again a Paula. If we win the first moto, we're good.
Yeah, we just got to get second.
And freaking Eli was able to beat him, and go into the last moto just ahead. And then the last moto didn't, I think Chase was pushing hard to do whatever he could, and it didn't work out. So that was at the point too. We hadn't won any 450 championships since 04 outdoors, and so it was just like, come on, we got to do it. We got to make it happen at some point. And so for it not to happen was it was pretty heartbreaking. So,
and that's with like zero knowledge of what was going to happen in 20, you know what I mean? Like,
if I had that knowledge, I'd have been like, it's all right, dude.
Do your thing. But you are operating without that knowledge. And it's like, you're still in that period. Like, we're looking at it now, and you guys have, had that amazing year, and so much pressure's off, I'm sure, in a sense. Where were you in 04, by the way? Were you involved?
04, I was on the team.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, that is so crazy to think that, 20 years later, you've been in those trenches for that long.
Yeah. In 2004, I was building Ricky's practice bikes and doing the test guy thing. But even I have his jersey from that Glen Helen race with the number 1.
Yeah.
The only race he did with a number 1. We have that bike at the shop, actually, by the way. And it's signed to me, to Lars. Thanks for all the nice practice bikes for Florida, so that's what I was doing in 04. And that's a big graduation from where I was when I started in there in the summer of 2000, because I was an idiot. I was just like a dipshit kid, that didn't know. I just raced and rode, and, I didn't know, typical kid just wants to have fun and ride. And, but then when I saw the way that like Goose, lived and worked, and Shane Drew and Ron Wood, all the guys at Honda, Cliff White. And that's when I fell in love with the team.
Yeah.
Before that, I loved the riders, before I was, Honda guy, die hard, because my family grew up, my dad worked for Honda.
Yeah.
And that's just what we rode, of course. And they were the baddest team in the 80s and 90s. I was a huge Jeremy fan. and Rick Johnson. But so yeah, that's when I kind of fell in love with the team, and then so it's been a long journey for sure.
Man, it is a crazy journey. Like there's probably a 12-hour podcast required to just like go through kind of everything that you've seen. Staying on like the Chase thing for a little bit and like that season, and then maybe like the motorcycle, and then kind of onto Jett, because I think I just love the storylines of the sport. Like that's my thing that I love the most. And it's been fascinating. Like it's such the dynamic is fascinating with, you've got Chase God, like he's phenomenal. Like as an athlete, as a rider, as like his career, what he's done. But then he's also like an enigma on one sense, because if you look at his resume, like he doesn't make the mistakes, or the resume doesn't reflect the guy that makes the mistakes and has had some of the issues. So like he's a crazy kind of athlete on his own. And then you get the Lawrence brothers, who are like, I mean, like how do you even script that?
Right.
You know, and then you're the guy that had to navigate that whole dynamic for, like a couple years. And it's funny, like the motorcycle, I have a bit of a theory, which I would think you'd be a very good person to confirm.
Let's hear it.
I feel like a lot of Chase's problems last year were to do with the motorcycle, but not that the motorcycle wasn't a good motorcycle. It was the way Chase and the motorcycle work together, right? So if you look at, before you'd see Jett ride a 450, you'd think Chase was like the perfect technique. And then Jett comes along, and I feel like from watching those two ride, they're doing almost everything the same, except under braking, Chase is putting so much load through the motorcycle. And under braking, Jett is trying to take load away from the motorcycle. And so I think that one style works extremely well for that particular motorcycle, and one style doesn't. It just pushes it to like this weird kind of place. And I know from riding a stock bike, the bike has like, it gets to a spot in the turn and it's almost like a predictable oversteer, if that makes sense. Like you kind of, with the geometry and the rigidity, like everything the way the stock bike is, it just kind of like has that point. And from riding it, I'm like, I feel like you could learn that, but that like it's a characteristic as such. And so from me, what it looked like last year is Chase was just putting too much load through the bike. And it was just a technical thing, a way that he rode. 250s, you could get away with it because there wasn't as much like inertia and actual like carry on weight when you are trying to brake, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so it looked like that's where those problems are coming from. And then, because everyone's going, it can't be the bike, look at Jett. But it's like there's two dudes that look very similar, but I feel like are doing a very different thing in terms of like the forces they're putting through the bike.
Yeah. I mean, I think every bike has its
characteristics
yeah. and those, positives and negatives, right? And you got to maximize the positives and minimize the negatives. And I think that we got the bike to a spot where and Chase does put a lot of weight on the front and he puts a lot of trust in the front. I think we got the bike to a spot where it had good traction and it felt good and he was comfortable. And it's very obvious that he was pretty comfortable. He was like fastest, like 13 out of 17 practices.
Fast.
Yeah.
And looked amazing while doing it.
Right. Yeah. But I do think that when you get anything to that level, it's like a road race bike,
Yeah.
When you lose it, I mean, it's gone.
Yeah.
It's on a razor's edge, like that, at least that's my opinion. And there's not a lot of saving it in that situation. And I think Chase is okay riding on that edge because, he's used to just the fastest he can go. That's what he's practices. I mean, he's gnarly. And, so riding that edge right there, he's comfortable putting it right on the edge, like I said, where the other guy might be like, okay, the edge is here, but I'm not going to get it all the way up to that edge. I'm going to get it close as I can. I'm going to I'm going to try to be better in this area over here. And like I said, that goes for every motorcycle,
Oh, 100%.
right? Like
Yeah.
no motorcycle is perfect in all areas. They have strengths and they have weaknesses. So, you got to learn that edge. And I think Jett's naturally, and I don't want to give it all to him as natural because he works his ass off to do it, and the way he rides and everything like that. He learns the bike, but to him, he probably learns it quicker.
Yeah.
Like he's got and there's different types of talent, right? And I think one talent that he has probably is that he knows what he needs to do and he figures that out in his head before he actually does it. He learns quick.
Yeah.
And I think that that's why he's been able to figure out on the bike. I guess we're gonna find out here in Supercross, right? Yeah, we haven't really done that, a lot of those, but so far so good. But yeah, to me, it's just Chase is willing to put it on the line right there, and God bless him for it, because he does some incredible things. So I think that hopefully we can get the bike in a spot for everybody in the future that it's a little bit more neutral for everyone, because there's some things it does amazing,
Well, and that's what I was about to say. So it's like you can say, okay, the bike has this characteristic here, and then for these circumstances, that's great, and then for these circumstances, it's not great. So it's like even a strength is a strength in a certain area, but then you can apply it's two sides to every coin, So
Right.
like the strength over there makes it a weakness here, but the weakness here is a strength over there. And I just think, certain guys gel with certain things. But do you think there's anything to like the difference in technique in terms of like loading and unloading?
I think so. I mean, Jett probably loads the bike more neutrally, and I think Hunter does too. Like we said, I think Chase is a pretty big guy too, so maybe that the weight shift has something to do with that too. But I think so. I think that it probably has a little bit to do with that. I mean, obviously, Jett I think fell one time this summer, and that was because he cross-threaded at a high point where he wasn't comfortable that day, anyways.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's hard to say. I guess we'll have to see here in the future.
Yeah, because I just think I wonder what your take is here, but I would love more. I don't know what the word is, but like you watch a MotoGP race, right? It's like they're very honest everywhere about the bike's strength and weaknesses. I feel like in motocross and supercross, it's very like everyone just across the board, from like the teams to the riders to the media. Like I feel like everyone, it's just the bikes are almost a non-issue in our sport in the way that they play into like the storylines and stuff like that. And I kind of wish at times it was a bit more like open in terms of like what we're doing, what we're using, what we're trying, even if it's fake news. Like I just want to hear something,
Yeah.
But yeah, because it's like you can ride that motorcycle stock and it's like it's so different in so many ways, like how easy it is to corner and how light the bike feels and like how skinny it is. And it's just like it is a really cool motorcycle. Like Honda made something crazy there. And then you can go on the Yamaha 450 and it's like that bike is also insane. Like that does some crazy, weird, different stuff that is completely unrelatable to any bike. But it's like those differences kind of aren't they're not very prominent in terms of like the broadcast and how it kind of comes across. I'm not sure if you feel the same.
Yeah, I will. I do think that when it comes to like MotoGP, they're riding prototype bikes,
Yeah.
like so they can say my bike is a pile all they want, it's prototype. You can't go buy that bike.
That's true. Yeah.
Where we're actually marketing bikes out what we make and sell that are very similar to the ones we're
Very
racing.
similar, yeah.
And I mean, I've ridden pretty much every bike out there, and they are all very good. Everybody says that because it's true.
Yeah.
Like the production bikes nowadays are really good. It's just whatever suits your style. And there's not really, one that just crushes everybody, like if you go to do lap times.
Oh, for sure.
If you were to go do lap times on a MotoGP bike, I guess, like with the traction and the predictability, or of the track and all these things, that you could put it down to lap time. You can go, this guy can only do this. But on a dirt bike, to me, it's not that big of a change. It's just, you want to make some changes here or there to make it do this that you want to do better. But I do think that we have been a little bit more out there with, and I say that, push that sometimes too, even like when we make changes, if we go a little bit, stiffer here, or even if we make a fork change, I've suggested this before, have like a cartridge there and be like, show like, oh, here's a couple shims and we preloaded it this much to do this change. Yeah. And like, so that people can see. A lot of times they don't really want that because there's too much of a broad audience, and some people don't really, but they're open to it. Especially I speak with the TV, production team like all the time. Yeah. Like we have really good communication with, not just with them, but the AMA, with Feld, like that. I've been surprised at how good it is. And maybe it's just gotten better, and I came into it at the right time.
Is that, I was going to say, is that recently? But
Probably.
You've only been a couple years where you're in that role. But I get that vibe from everyone, though, that it's like getting better.
For sure. And they have been doing a great job of just communication, like we have a group text with all the managers. Like we're on that thing during the day. Like, Jeremy Coker might say, or Larry Brooks might say, hey, the whoops have the, like I think it was at Tampa this year, the whoops are like really long, and the last whoop was like in the turn before you turn to make a right, and it made the section like kind of one lined. And so the suggestion was, hey, let's take out 2 of the whoops at the end, or 1 or whatever it was, and everybody kind of like agrees that thumbs up on the text, right? Luckily, there's not one person on there with an Android, so like you can still have the thumbs up in there.
Yeah.
So those kind of things just happen without like having to like go through the pits and talk to this, and all that is like quick and easy, just like everything else has become quicker and easier. Like with messaging and Teams meetings and Zoom or whatever it is. It's just gotten so much easier to communicate those things, and it like you get somewhere. And also with the TV too, we have like kind of a group thread with them, and they're, Will Christian might be like, hey, I need to come over and get an interview. You got 5 minutes. Yeah. Stuff like that happens all the time now. Like I said, I don't know if that happened before. I don't think so, because it seems like it's...
from what I understand, that's not how it's been for the last like 20, 30, 30 years,
Yeah. And even AMA Feld, MX Sports, like we have these calls with them, and deciding on future plans and all these rules and whatever, and everybody kind of has a say, and they genuinely seem interested in what we're doing and creating the future of the sport, which is really strong right now because of them,
the talent
getting together and having one unified like TV or with having Peacock for everyone. It's just so much better.
Man, it's been crazy to watch. Like, I was very vocal about certain things that I thought needed to change, and like the breath of fresh air to go into this year, or like 2023, and just see so much change. Like, I think as a fan, like lifelong fan of the sport, I've always thought, I'm sure you've always thought, we've got one of the coolest sports in the world.
Yeah.
Like it's just, the guys are so gnarly. And ever since I started on the podcast, and the people that would message, and the different, actors and different sports and different, like just all of these people, musicians that are just so into Supercross. And I'm like, we are so under-leveraged. Like, we are the shit, as a sport. Like, look at the eyes on us from, these different places. But it just didn't feel like, for the level of social proof that it feels like we have amongst our peers, it's like the sport doesn't reflect that. The riders, the way that their deals are done, and the sponsorship, and the people that are into, it's just it's stuck as like it's an industry. It's its own little bubble. And I'm like, man, we're so much bigger. Like, we've got more to offer than that. And this last 12 months especially, it really seems like the teams are trying to go forward. The sport's trying to go forward. Like, MX Sports and Feld getting together. It's like, it really does seem like there's a big kind of push. And I said to Davey Coombs at the Alpine Stars thing, I was like, mate, it's just like surfing. There's a wave coming, you better fucking paddle, because you need to get on that wave, because you don't know when the next one's coming, and you don't know if someone else is going to be on it. So it's like, we're on a wave, or like there's a wave coming, like paddle, and let's make sure we get it. And that honestly feels like the vibe.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, like I said, that's been my analogy this past years, that we're on this wave. We just need to keep pumping that wave.
Yeah.
But yeah, with as far as the series too, I mean, I know that even just our social media presence, things like that, is really strong compared to other, like, that seems like huge series, like it's I think, even though I think that our sport might have a tough time ever being one of the big sports, it's definitely got a ways that it can go, and it's going that way. It feels like, and yeah, just exciting. Some of these things are just super exciting to have. Like I said, the same Peacock, we could watch Supercross, and we can watch Race Day Live and all this cool stuff. Like, if you're a mega fan,
it's been unreal.
There's so much content, right? And there's guys like my buddies that are texting me on race day, and they've seen stuff during the day that I had no idea about. Like, they'd be like, "Hey, this guy's not racing, huh? What do you mean?" They're like, "No. He cased that one triple, and he looks like he's, And I'm like, cool. Like, thanks for the info, So even during the nationals, I'm texting Torrance, with Ricky Rock, our guy, that's our special projects guy. And I'm like, "Hey, dude, what's the overall? Because the screen's not working, and he's just on it, he's got all this information for me. Stuff like that is just super, super cool. And also with like the fantasy stuff and all that. Before, I was like traveling every race. I was like doing that. I was into it. It was fun, because then you start, looking at the privateer guys that you wouldn't necessarily know about, and doing all that stuff is cool. Like, it's a good time to be a fan right now.
Oh man, I cannot agree more. And like, yeah, we might not ever be with the NFL, and like, which that's probably good.
Yeah.
Like, let's not get to that level. But I mean, there's so much room to grow. And like, I think, what was that contract in baseball the other day? Dodgers, $770 million.
I didn't see it.
The pitcher, I guess they just signed a pitcher for like some, 10 or 7 year deal, $770 million.
Wow.
It's like, well, let's just get 10% of that for Jett, or for, like, if we imagine living in, in that kind of world. And I think that it's definitely possible. And like, there's two properties that you have with a sport. Like, you have the entertainment property, and then you have the sport property. And then it's like, how do you make those things kind of like work together? Like, the sport aspect of it grows in terms of, I've got a ton of ideas in terms of like in-ear communication and like just different things for the broadcast package, different ways of, integrating the series and things like that. So it's like, there's the sport side, but then there's just, you can focus on the social media and like the fan experience and the TV package and like the online package, and there's so much room for it to grow. And it just, it seems like there's a lot of good people that are interested in pushing it that way. And like, even Weege was in here last week, and he's saying like, all the team managers and all the team, like the teams are saying, okay, boys, like, we don't need the sponsorship Dunlop tires. Like, we don't need exactly that on the podium now. And you've got like, I think Jett and Hunter are amazing at that balance of like having personality, using it as their time, while also getting like the messaging across. But it's like, we're even living in an era now where the teams are saying, don't worry about the 20 pitboard sponsor reads. Like, we're moving on from that era, and like, just that's huge.
Oh yeah, for sure. And we haven't pushed that in a long time. I'm not sure at any point where we were like, you have to read off these sponsors. Some sponsors, maybe even on some other teams, are like, hey, you have to mention this guy at this, because they like that or whatever. I've never really had to be involved in that, and we've never pushed our guys to, at least, especially not in my 2 years now, of like, this and that. I do know that we want to make sure that we are Honda. We're there. That's what we're doing there, is we're advertising for our product, right? But that happens when they're on the podium and they got their jerseys on and all that stuff. So we don't really need them to talk about that. It's always nice when they want to and they say something cool. But yeah, just showing their personality and bringing new viewers or just people that really like, I mean, obviously Jett, he's natural up there.
Yeah.
He's just saying whatever he thinks and it happens to work out, Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then Hunter is super clever, as
dude, crazy.
Like he's got these quick comebacks, especially, making fun of Jett or something like that. And they're usually kind of like deadpan too, he's classic when it comes to that stuff. So I know that he's getting more like recognized as that, I think, because Jett takes a lot of that spotlight, I guess. But the more people get to know Hunter's personality, I think he's going to gain even more fans, because dude's pretty funny.
Yeah, he's very, very smart. What do you think that was? Like, do you think that it was the era of just reading the pitboard, like literally reading the pitboard? Like, do you think was that? Yeah, maybe the teams never sort of said it, but it just became like a thing the guys did it, because a lot of these guys, they're just racers. Like, they've just forever raced, and there was never, like, the internet wasn't as prevalent. The same kind of questions would get asked, and maybe it's like they just didn't want to deal with the extra thing of like, okay, who am I? What's my personality? Like, what am I trying to get across here? Maybe it just became like this industry-wide safe zone where it was like, I just want to thank Monster Energy, Pro Circuit, Kawasaki, Thor Parts Unlimited. Like, everyone just kind of had their thing and they said it and then they got off. Like, what do you think it was?
I mean, I would have to think that it was mainly due to sponsors and sponsorship, like especially if you're not even a factory team, right? You're relying on sponsors to keep you racing. Everybody wants to go racing, but the business behind it to just get you there is not easy. So you want to make sure that they're getting what they want, which is recognition and people to know their name, and so they can go buy their products and do their thing, right? Just like anything else. And I think that it's tough to make ends meet sometimes. So it's pretty important to make sure that people know who these sponsors are. And if you can do that in a way that's not a robot, like reading off, like, let me just thank this guy and this guy, like, that the natural way is the best way in that situation. If you can make it work, like, take your pick on whatever you want to say about my Dunlop tires, but working it naturally, that's awesome if you can do that. And that shows your personality too, I think. But at the same time, talking about the race, keeping fans interested so that you're bringing back more fans, and that is probably trumps that. So I don't know. People probably grew up watching some of these guys too, and they want to be like them, and so they just, maybe other sports too, same kind of deal, NASCAR or whatever it is. You just kind of end up going that way. I think back, like I remember hearing like in the 80s, 90s, stuff like that, they would take the riders to like media training. Yeah. And this is how you should do an interview. I'd like to see one of those school classes that they took, were they telling them like, stand up straight and you need to speak clearly, and your primary sponsor should be number one. You say, like, I don't know if it was that strict or that's what they got taught, or if they were like, hey, just be yourself, do this, and it's probably a little bit of a mixture of both, I would imagine, I guess.
Do you guys do any media training, like official media training, or does Feld do any media training stuff these days?
It's definitely available. I just think that we've had a group of riders.
Yeah, this time you're pretty sweet.
Yeah. And even then, like, maybe people grew up, like I said, watching these riders and they read off their sponsors like this. Maybe now they've grown up watching enough guys like Pastrana. Yeah. And, even like, Jeremy and guys like that. Maybe they've seen enough of these guys now and they know, because it's not just, you and me saying like, you should, be yourself and have a cool personality or show your personality, whatever that personality is. They've heard that so many times now that they're like, okay, I got that. Yeah. And some riders, obviously, that comes naturally to them, and some riders it doesn't. But if there was somebody that needed some media training, then Feld would be all over it. They would love to do that, and so would we. I mean, we could do something like that. It just hasn't really been necessary so far.
Yeah, especially with the crew that you've got now, and I think Chase was pretty good as well. Like I feel like the last sort of generations of especially like the HRC guys, AC was saying something when he did the podcast that like even him when he was in the 250 class, he just felt like when you're on a 250, you just don't get to do that stuff.
Right.
He's like, you'd only see the 450 guys once they'd won championships and titles. And so I think that there probably is just influence of who came before you and like what your peers that were before you kind of did and how they acted, you know, and like AC goes, it basically wasn't until I was on a 450 that I've really felt like I was someone in the sport and I could kind of do that. And I think that psychology makes sense as well. But now you've had Jett do his thing in the 250 class. Hunter was brilliant on the mic. Deegan obviously has been amazing on the mic. I think Joe's got his own personality. Like he's my wife's favorite rider.
Yeah.
Like, you know, she come to LA and that was the one dude she wanted to meet. She doesn't give a fuck about dirt bikes in any other capacity.
Yeah.
So it's like he's got his own flavor and she's like, Japan's her favorite country. She loves anime. So it's like she basically looked at him as like an anime character of Supercross, you know? So it's like everyone has, I guess, in the 250 class, the modern group of riders, it seems like it's kind of opening up a little bit more. And yeah, maybe it's just down to messaging to where it's like, hey, just the sponsor thing. It's like you're on the podium. We saw the color bike you rode. Yeah. The logos are everywhere. Be cool. Show us who you are. Like, you know, get people. You'd have to think like from a sponsor's perspective, guaranteeing that a podium interview would get a follow on Instagram would just provide so much value because then you're seeing everything. You know, it's like just lock people in with the podium. You get this 15 seconds of helmet off, getting to show who you are. It only happens to 6 dudes a night. Like that to me, I'm like, that's the most valuable time. And I think the press conference as well is like another area where guys should like really be themselves, like really don't give generic answers. Cause it's like, again, we're in a sport with helmets on, you're riding a motorcycle. Like we just don't get to see your face on TV. We don't get to see who you are. So it's like those times where you're on the podium, like you just have to maximize that in terms of like personal brand. Like who are you as someone that I can then be involved with as a fan. And for the thing with Supercross that I always think about as well, like we sell out a lot of stadiums all over the US all year. Like if you looked at, I mean, that's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people that are going through those stadiums. Like I wonder how many of those people actually like follow the riders on Instagram or follow the teams or will search it on YouTube or will watch every race. Like how many of those people are just going for that? Like, we've been going to Minneapolis Supercross with my dad for 10 years. Like the one thing we go to, you know? So it's like, are we even converting every fan that's in the stadium to like a moto fan, or are they just there for like that one-time event, you know? So I think I'd always be interested in finding out those numbers. And I think it's like grabbing people. That's your chance to grab people. It's like even thinking like, let's say it's 50-50. You know, 50% of people are like diehard followers of the sport. 50% of people are just there because it's in their city for a night. And it's like those are the times when you can drag people from the stadium to like a lifelong fan, you know?
Yeah, totally. It's funny to talk to some people that, you know, if they know like my kid at school or something, one of the dads sees a hat or whatever, you know, and they ask what you do, you know, start talking. They'll be like, oh, yeah, we went to a race. It was in Anaheim Stadium, I think, last year. You know, and they're like, yeah, we checked it out, and then that's it.
That's it.
You know, like then there's other guys that are like, oh yeah, like we did that, and after that we really loved, you know, Chase Sexton, and then we started following him, and it's like it does happen both ways. It's just the connection, I guess, that you would get, and that's why a guy like Jett, when he comes on the podium and says stuff, and then the little kid just gravitates towards that, and that makes him tell dad, hey, I want to do that, or let's watch it on TV. They're in Seattle next week. I want to see that race. And then you go through it. Like I went to Monster Jam for the first time ever. I brought yeah. So a bunch of us from the team went. It was cool. And it was super fun.
Was it like good experience?
Yeah, it was sweet. Yeah. We all watched it, and obviously I had my son, brought my buddy and his kid, and then a couple of other guys have kids too. So yeah, we watched it, and it was like, it was in Anaheim, and it's, didn't start off with looked like about half full. And I'm like I've heard that Monster Jam or trucks or whatever sells out like every time. And like, wouldn't you know, like by the end of the night, freaking stadium is packed. Like they didn't all come in for that first boom, show, but by the end of the night, they're all there.
Yeah.
And then I was just wondering, they sell all that for the show, right? I wonder how many people are there to all right, let's see if Gravedigger can win 2 weeks in a row now,
Such a good point.
Yeah. To me, I think we have way more attraction to follow the series.
For sure.
Right? Like monster trucks, you bring your kid, they're freaking, they're gnarly, they sound bitchin', and they're that whole experience, right? But that's to me more of a show.
Yeah.
We are kind of a complete package, and I think that we retain a little bit more of the actual fan, or at least draw them into a story of the whole thing. But yeah, just same thing. And actually Feld's super good with all those numbers, the data that they collect to see impressions and everything that we get. And this past year, they blew their numbers out of the water.
Dude,
so
that's awesome to know.
Yeah.
Man, I'm actually, this year was cool. I for the first time got to work a bit more with those guys. And now that I'm here, and I'll be going to basically every race until Daytona. I really am excited to try and work more with that crew, and just that. Man, there's so much more left that they can get out of it as well. It's a massive process though.
Yeah,
and it's they're fully it's starting to happen, and it's super exciting to see the direction it's going, because you're so right. We have a series that you can follow for the whole year almost, and there's so many properties where it's a Disney on Ice or a Monster Jam where it's just, it's just a show.
Yeah.
And I think understanding that we have that dynamic, and, even working with the riders on that, for Chase, when he was on the podcast, he was talking about that. He's Supercross needs to decide, are we a sport or are we a show? And it's no, we're both.
Yeah.
And it's huge for us. And everyone needs to be an athlete and a entertainer to a sense, or at least have that framework in their mind as to why we're here and what the value is, in a sense. And then I think that's when the rider would then go, well, I'm not getting paid for that. And it's cool, well, let's get you paid. So that's, I think, the attitude that we need to have going forward.
Right. Yeah, and I think that, comparing those two together, still the riders, the people come to watch the riders, and maybe a little bit of a team fan too, somebody
for sure.
Somebody's a Cowie fan for life, and then, RV retires and then they become a Cincerello fan or whatever it is. And so that you can have all that, but you can't have a Gravedigger, right? And then have somebody jump in and drive it. That's totally different.
Yeah.
And you're moto, you can't do that. You can't take Jett's bike and just go put some random, guy on it. And it's just not going to be the same results, or, just the, his personality and all those things. So it's a little unique to that, because we are a sport, and that balance has got to be kept in check, right?
Yeah.
Because and I think that's why we have these meetings with them, and they want to do the same thing, is to make sure that the integrity of the sport is still there, but we're maximizing the show at the same time, and that's where I'm 100% on board. Yeah, let's do that, because I know there's certain things that we got to do that to some diehards they're just oh my god, dude, this is lame. Why, we're a race team. We're here to win races, and hell yeah, we are. But we also got to do this to make sure that we're gonna have the sport and at least keep it where it's at right now. So there's all those kind of things are things that we try to balance out.
Well, do you have any stuff in your own mind as if you had a magic wand and at A1 you could have XYZ things either added or changed to the sport? Have you got any concepts in your mind that you would love to see implemented?
The one thing that I've been asking for years is Super Pole.
bang, I'm on.
Yeah,
I'm in.
Superpole is rad. And ever since I saw it in World Superbike in like 1998, wherever it was, and I'm sure it's been around for way longer than that, but it just works so well. I mean, all those overseas races that we do, like Geneva and
Bercy,
or Paris, have had it for years, and it works so well where the guy does a lap and the other guy's warming up. And as soon as that happens, I mean, it's just bang, 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 and you get a 15-minute show. And there's like, that's a show, but it's also like there's so much pressure on the rider. So if they are able to execute and win, it's like huge for them. So it needs to be some kind of benefit. And I'm not sure that I would want to put money on it, or excuse me, points on it.
Yeah.
But maybe some kind of bonus money, and also, first pick for the race, for the main, whatever it is. That one I've been wanting to do forever. And I know they do it in World Supercross too. So that would be cool. I used to always think that the head-to-head races that we did when we were over in those overseas ones would be cool too, but I've kind of moved away from that a little bit. I'm not as interested. It'd be cool.
I think you can tick all the right boxes with the Superpole.
Yeah, it would be pretty rad. I think it's cool now that they do. I mean, even I'm not a huge fan of the Triple Crown, but I'm not a hater either. Like I think it's cool that we only do, 3 of them or whatever it is. I don't know if I would want to do more, because for everybody on the team it's tough, for the riders it's tough, but for the fan it's cool.
Yeah.
Or at least not, not every fan, but just get a couple in there. So I think I like when they do, some different things and switch it up. And especially at these SMX races, you have a clean slate. You can do
that's like a testing bed almost.
Yeah. So all those kinds of things. Somebody was talking about at one point, and I don't know if you saw this in when we did the U.S. Open back in the day.
Yeah.
We did. They wanted to do a mechanics challenge. You had to do like a pit stop.
Yeah.
And change the rear wheel and then go back out. So we did that, and I had been doing Supermoto with McGrath and Ben Bostrom. And
so you were just dialed.
Oh, so we had like these custom parts that we had made that the bike still worked perfect on the track, but our wheel changes were like butter smooth, and they only took 30 seconds compared to whatever it was. And in like an easy 30 seconds, you could do it quicker if you really, really hauled ass. But those kind of things were fun, and we just talked about that recently. That'd be kind of cool at either an SMX or something like that. Maybe not during the race, but have some kind of thing like that. Stuff like that I think is fun.
The Super Bowl I absolutely love, and I think what I would like to see, I think that you could ditch opening ceremonies and make the Super Bowl the opening ceremony. Yeah. Like, what's to say that I would love, like, if I could control the broadcast, I would get Ricky, James, and Weege, or whoever it is in the booth, like on the floor for opening ceremonies. Like, feel the music. Like, it's so, the atmosphere of Supercross doesn't come through on the broadcast just because it's in that booth the whole time. It's like very clinical. It's like very clean. I almost would love to have those guys on the floor doing, like, when the fireworks is going on, the smoke, they've got lighting. It just would look super dramatic. Like UFC basically does it. I don't know if you watch UFC much, but they'll do like at the opening of the main event, once it goes live on pay-per-view, like the guys are like holding the mics and they're right next to each other, but they're having to yell because of how loud the crowd is.
Right.
And instantly, like, you kind of charged up because it's like, this is going to be one of the best, like, because they have to yell. Yeah. And it's like, you're just like, fuck yeah, I'm there right now.
Yeah. No, and that's cool. Yeah.
We miss that. And it's like, that's an easy fix. Or it's like, if you've got to go straight up to the broadcast, maybe it's not Weege up there. Maybe it's just Ricky, just James, just whatever. And then bang, from there, you go into opening ceremonies, which is the Super Bowl. And so you could have, like, do you remember in downhill back in the day that have, like, well, they still do it, but they have the hot seat. So in downhill, you got the finals.
If you're the fastest,
and you're the fastest down, and you like stay in the hot seat.
Right.
So it's like, just think about the TV time, the sponsor time. Like, what would your sponsors, if you could go, like your marketing team went to an outside sponsor and said, look, I got 2 450s. That's going to be a minute of just prime time opening show. They'll be in there basically every weekend. And if they get the fastest lap time, which like Hunter's probably going to stay for 3, 4, 5, 6 goes before someone beats him, and they're like the camera goes back to the dude that's in the hot seat, you know. Right. And it's like, do the opening ceremonies, play the intro of like who the guy is as they're coming down for their, and it, you know, it change every week, but like there's the same dudes are in the top 10. You know, you might have to do 15 intros or whatever, but it's like, open the show with that. It would be so sick. And then as soon as it's done, fucking bang on a 250 heat race. You know, it's like you could there's so much energy and there's so much to work with in like that first 15 minutes of the broadcast, and it's like, just smash people instantly, get them in and just like, fuck yes, let's go.
Do you know Mike Mewey?
No.
You need to get him on here. He's
really?
Chief of Operations at Feld. He probably want to hire you, actually.
I would love to. I would love to talk. I don't need a job. I'll just give him my shit. I'd love to work with it.
No, he's awesome. He's into that kind of, or, you know, he's into new ideas and creating stuff like that. So yeah, that would be actually pretty cool. Although I do love opening ceremonies when they're done like really good, and I think they are good too. They're working on making them back a little bit more, I think, the way they were before, where like I used to love the ones, and I still love opening ceremonies, like as a fan, you know, like if they've made like a cool video, and then you know the music kind of builds, and then boom, and here comes the rider out. Like, you know, you're not a fan if you don't like that stuff. But
I think you could do that.
Yeah, I think you could.
And then they ride through the thing, and then they're off. Well,
especially if you just made like 3 to 5 quality intros, and then took the top guys, and then kind of like maybe shrunk it down from the 10 or whatever they do now.
Yeah.
Just bring out the gnarliest guys at the time, you know, and then if you end up becoming one of those, then you get invited in. Kind of should be pretty exclusive, and then just make a killer video for whatever that guy's personality is, which they used to do. They did that a few times, and I know that they've taken some constructive criticism from everyone, so I think they're working towards doing that again. But yeah, something like that would be cool. But yeah, I think it would be pretty rad to super pull like straight in, you know. But yeah, it's kind of hard. I think there's a few different ways to do it, but
yeah, and I think again we're like having to assume that there's 50% of people that have no clue what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like my wife, again, she knows nothing. First time she ever watched Supercross was with me on a laptop. And she was just like, what's going on? Like, who are these people? What are they doing? What bike is this? What, you know? So it's like in that, you know, let's say opening ceremony shootout, it's like, it's so easy to follow. It's just one dude on the track, the lap, like it's very, very, very easy to like suck a person in who doesn't really know what's going on, especially if it's like a kind of a show as well.
Right.
And in that, you know, that's where you could lay the foundation of like how the races kind of the night will go on.
Yeah.
What about in-ear communication?
I don't really have anything against it. I think it would be cool. I mean, I'm a huge Formula One fan, so I like hearing what's going on there. Would you want to be able to like full communication back and forth?
Yes.
Yeah. Because you kind of have to hear the rider, right? Like that's what everybody's gonna be asking or wondering about. I think it's cool. I just it's just gnarly for the rider, especially Supercross. There's not a lot of time to lose focus on the Supercross track. But maybe a start straight, you could maybe listen to somebody or hear a lap time, but there's not a lot of going back and forth like there is in any other motorsport or, you know, road or car sport basically.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be cool to try. And they wanted to do it, you know, like the Monster Cup, they allowed it.
Oh, okay.
And nobody really.
Oh, that was what, 2017?
Yeah, or maybe before even
16, 17,
something like that.
I think I was at it. I remember it was somewhere in that era. I think.
I believe Alessi's the only one that did it.
Of course.
Yeah.
I love that. He probably ran it his entire career. He's like, sweet, this is the one round I can say I'm doing it
at the practice track. Same thing, I think it's cool. I mean, something like that to like bring a whole new element to the thing. But I just don't know if it would really have the same
impact.
Yeah. I mean, in F1, for example, like if you didn't have it, you'd be totally screwed, right? Like it'd be tough. But for us, it's not really the same. So it would suck if you were like going to say something and they make a mistake and then they're like, dude, you talked right when I was on braking, you know, or whatever, and something like that. But I mean, whatever. I always tell the riders too, like, I'm like, hey, why don't you start with a map that's powerful? And when you're fresh, you know, the first couple laps, you can get it. And then you switch back. We did that before with like Justin Bogle did it for us when he was riding for us. And I think Cole did, Seeley. And I'm like, that'd be awesome. And a lot of the times they're like, well, there's too many buttons to push and everything. And I'm like, bro, like, you are a professional.
Look at a Formula One car. Like, let's back yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I realize they have a straightaway where they can kind of like go like, you know, hey, I can relax a little bit. So I'm not expecting you to, but I mean, you're not looking at 75 buttons, you know, you're looking at 2.
Yeah.
So stuff like that. I'm always giving them a hard time because I'm like, you can do that. Like, you know, but it's just for them, I think, muscle memory, right? They can pull a freaking tear off and flip it perfectly right behind them.
Yeah.
And so they can do those things. Sometimes I don't think they want to think outside the box like that, you know?
Well, I mean, yeah, you nailed it. Like I rode the Stark at World Vets. And so the start.
How long was the race?
20 minutes.
You made it?
Yeah, dude. I did 3 motos back to back.
Really?
Yeah.
No charging?
I would charge, but you'd only get a few percent. So it'd be like a little bit. There was the first day I did 2 practices that were on like 2 laps. So like 6 minutes. So 12 minutes. Then my first race was 20 minutes. My second race was 20 minutes. And then I think my third race, I think it was going to be too low. I didn't want to risk it. So I rode my 350. And then the fourth race, I rode it. Oh, yeah. So, but I started in 70 horsepower.
Really?
And then as soon as I got around the corner, I whacked it into 60.
That's cool.
And like, so if I can do it.
Yeah.
But I think that is genuinely what, like the guy, it's like the tech's not available and there's not a push from people to adopt it. But like, dude, you seen like Baku and like some of those street circuits where like, dude, they're just millimeters with a car that they can't, like, there's a lot going on and those dudes are like changing shit. They're talking back and forth. Man, have you had like the headphones on at an F1?
No, not at an F1.
But MotoGP, you would have?
Yeah, and like some NASCAR stuff like that. But yeah.
It blows you away.
I do listen to because I have the F1 app.
So you're listening to
I've listened to the in car.
Yeah.
And I guess it depends on what race it is, but sometimes they're not saying anything for a while. But I do listen to that quite a bit. And also like the race engineer, like their tone of voice and everything, that they just never get too excited or too bummed. It's just always the same. Yeah. And the kind of trains the driver into keeping calm and stuff. It's kind of cool.
Dude, think about if me as a fan could sit and tune in to listen to you and Jett, or like imagine Dazzy and Jett, like race day live.
Yep.
And you're just picking the audio that you want to, I mean, that's years down the road. Like even if they said, we're doing it, like to develop those processes and systems, like it takes a long time. But like, I mean, I think about it from just a story perspective, because that's what the sport is a story. Mm-hmm. You've got event. They're all these individual events, and the story of the championship and the story of the riders and that's what just gets kind of woven in to like keep people coming back to each individual thing. But just the story, you know, like just to be able to have the audio of, you know, someone like that perfect example would have been like Kenny and Jett, and Jett's doing the math, and you'd have Jett being like, where am I, what points? And then that would, imagine if that whole like math gate situation, and you're like, dude, no, like you need to win this or whatever it is. Like just the different opportunities for that to be fed back into the broadcast, then for the social media that gets built off that over the following week. And it's just like I said to Weege the other day, it's like it just thickens up the sport so much. And I mean, I'm sure there's times like you would have loved to have had communication with a rider on track and you're just standing there like, fuck, like you can't say anything.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, because you only get the pit board, you know, once a lap, and even then, with the you know, the amount of room that they give you where the track is choppy and stuff, that a lot of times they can't see it anyways. So some stuff like that would be interesting if you could tell them things or whatever like that. I wonder if like if you ask a rider, that'd be a better question, right? Like if they would want that. And I think we even said that at some point, and they were like, no way, like I wouldn't want that, you know, but it would have to be something that you kind of do during the week.
Yeah.
And then,
it just would become a normal thing.
Right. And there'd have to be kind of like a protocol, right? Like you never talk here, like coming into the whoops, never say anything, you know, like,
for sure.
So the guy that you're talking to has got to be the same person. He's got to be, you know, I guess it would be the crew chief or whatever.
Yeah. Or your guy, your mechanic, or like whatever.
It'd have to be you and him have a special relationship, where you trust that he's going to say the right thing or whatever and do all these things and whatever. I mean, I would think it would be cool. And maybe we'll get to try it at some point, but so far nobody's like really, I guess if we had if it would make a huge impact and if it would make like solve some problems that we have right now, maybe, but right now it's like, we don't really have them. So
yeah,
but it would be cool to try, I guess.
I think, you just make it almost like a pit board. Like there's a zone where you can show the pit. It's not like you can follow the run around the track with the rider and keep showing in the pit board. And I think, you just have designated zones where it's just like, this is green for comms.
Right.
The rider can talk to you at any point. And then like how I would see it working is, because I've rode, again, I'm, for everyone listening, I'm not Jett Lawrence and I'm not racing with any, like I get that. But I did some coaching with Townley in Oz. And we had like the in-ears and stuff going, and just we spoke the whole time.
Oh yeah.
It just was not an issue in the way that you kind of would have. It doesn't like frighten you. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Like you know that person's there. Like you know that there's communication.
Yeah.
Going. So I just think, I guess that's probably a good point. Is like, is it important enough? Like, is it going to move the needle? And it's like, I personally think so. And it's just like, it would be a matter of like trying it, you know?
Yeah.
But I think too, for like rider safety, blue flags, like lappers, I think it would be huge.
Right.
Like every rider has, maybe not every rider has two-way, I guess, but then you've got to kind of make it fair for everybody. But it's like, I think one thing that Supercross needs as well is like a legit race control, which I think they've sort of half had a bit of this year. And I think they're maybe trying to do a bit more of coming into next year.
Yeah.
But like one dude, race control, and then he can push the button on either all riders or individual riders, to where it's like, I think about Kenny and Coop at Dallas with like the lappers. Houston.
That was the last race I was a mechanic, by the way. I was a mechanic for Kenny that night.
Oh, really?
Because his mechanic got COVID.
So you remember that scenario?
Wilson.
Like, so imagine then if you could communicate to Ken. Like, I'm sure, like, so
I'd rather communicate to Dean to like, hey, get out of the way.
Well, that wouldn't be your job. That would be
you're right.
That would be like the race control
guy,
you know? So it's like race control can just go straight in. Dean Wilson, hey, leaders are coming. They're on your left, like NASCAR spotter style, basically. But then imagine if you could be in Kenny's ear and like let's say you and him have the relationship where you can be like, go Kenny, come on, you know, and then like wants that out of, like, I just feel like it could be add like a whole layer of complexity to the sport that we kind of, we're just leaving on the table in a sense, you know?
Yeah. Maybe we need to try it in a lesser series or one-off race or something like that to see how it works. And also if the equipment is even, I don't even know what they have right now for, capabilities without having like the big old walkie-talkie thing on the side of your helmet.
Yeah.
I'm sure they have cool stuff, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I think I'd say they'd be able to do, I'm sure you'd be able to do like almost like a receiver transmitter on the bike itself and then run them wirelessly.
Right.
And you just have like wireless in-ears. Like there's so much crazy cool
for sure
stuff that you could do. But yeah, anyway, I think that's one of my big kind of, I just think it would do like a lot for the series. Is there any other stuff that you can think of that you'd love to kind of implement?
One thing that I joke about is because so many people get so like bummed about the starting great, especially for outdoor, and they want to go back to dirt. And I get it, because the dirt is what we've always used and it takes more technique. I guess one thing that would be cool is if you had, for outdoors especially, whatever that promoter wants to run on that track, if he wants to have a concrete start, great start, or dirt start, just go for it. It kind of used to be that way back in the day. and there'd be guys like Kevin Windham that would be amazing on concrete.
Yeah.
And then, guys that wouldn't be, so the technique was so different that you had to kind of, just be prepared for that. Also, it was cool when they didn't have starting lockdowns, because then it was big time technique.
Yeah.
So, but then again, I would hate to not have my Works Connection locked down. No, sponsor plug.
They are good.
But so anyway, yeah, I think about that kind of stuff, or like interesting things like that to make it back to technique and whatnot. But I'm sure there's plenty of other things I'm not thinking of right now, because I definitely like to try to, come up with something new and different.
And so let's say Feld comes to you, because this is the thing I think that our sport kind of doesn't do well in comparison with other motorsports, is like we never change the rules.
Well, I would say that we never change the rules, but they have the last couple of years, right? They added Triple Crowns, and then they, especially with SMX now, they've totally
I think
that's different.
formats and stuff. But Matt, I'm thinking more like motorcycles, like what you said about like whole shot devices.
Oh, okay.
So, and I think the thinking there is like there'd probably just be a lot of pushback, and I'm sure Feld is just going like, fuck it. Like, it's just not worth, like, that ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
But how would you feel, let's say Feld comes to you and they go, hey.
This is probably more of an AMA question.
Okay.
But yeah.
Well, okay. So I think that it should be up to Feld, because it's part of the entertainment in a sense, in the way that.
They do work together. So, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, I would say you go, like every 2 years in F1, there's a rule change. Obviously, we can't do that because it's like production motorcycle. Like, it's just, that's not the game that we're playing.
Right.
But yeah, I'm sure you could do like no whole shot devices, and they just go like, all right, we're banning those. It's going to be based, or they can only be this deep, or like whatever.
Right.
But what would something like that, how would that come across to you? Obviously, the whole shot one you're kind of a fan of, but it's like, because all that does is make more work for you, changes, more testing, and it's like you guys are already stacked doing all the stuff that you've got to get done. So it's like, is that stuff just a crazy huge inconvenience, or is that the kind of thing where you could go, all right, that's our changes for this year, we've got to adapt, it's like gives us a new challenge, it's kind of gonna change up like the way that things get done. Like, would you be open to that kind of thing as like a team manager in a team?
I think so, but it would depend on what that is and how much of an impact it would be on our team, or how much we've had prepared and planned out for the future, But I think at some point, like certain things that do get changed. Next year our sound rule is changing.
Okay.
For example, like because in the future, our sound is going to be limited even more. So we're not going to be able to round up anymore. Right now, MXGP is like, it's the sound limit's 112, right? And then they give you 2 dB for the weather and all that. So it's basically, you just call it 114.0.
Yeah.
You cannot be over 114.0 or else you fail. We round up to 14.9. So we can be 14.9 until, if we're 15, we're failing. That's going to be different this year. They're switching that back to 14.0, which is a little bit more along those lines. Like they're making rule changes. There's a new rule book coming out, by the way, too. That's going to have a bunch of different things in it. So, so I am like okay with doing certain things, but it's difficult to say what those things could be.
Yeah.
And not kind of, for one, make an improvement, because that's what
you'd be doing it for. Yeah.
F1, they're doing it to bring racing together and closer together, right? And all the different wing changes to create actual passing.
Yeah.
So yeah, if there's things that we can do to create better passing and more opportunity for people, it's hard though. Like if we have Jett Lawrence and he's amazing in the whoops, and they say, the racing was really good at SMX with no whoops, let's just take him out.
Yeah.
I don't want that.
Yeah.
And I don't think a real Supercross fan should want that either, right?
Yeah.
Right, because the track should be gnarly and the best riders should win. But if the best rider wins every single race, like happening outdoors, then it's kind of a positive and a negative, I guess. But then again, the best riders that wins is that's how it should be. The best guy should win. So it's hard, I guess. Like I said, it would have to depend on what it was.
Yeah, and I think, in the, let's say F1, it's like that's the whole sport. Like it's like you build a car for this, and that's not what we're doing here. It's like we're taking a production. So I think that there's just limits, like one thing, this is actually a Casey Stoner idea. So this idea comes with more weight than just my dumbass opinion. But one of the things that I think is hurting, like literally hurting the sport, because it's hurting riders, is just how brutal the tracks are getting. It's like way gnarlier than it's ever been. I mean, I'm sure you guys have walked some of the tracks after races and just been like, what the fuck happened?
Yeah, they're beat.
But Casey's idea is to do like a Supercross tire that has like a controlled knobby height and then like a pattern to it, to where, because I feel like you could make a tire that would be in between like a flat track tire and like a motocross tire,
like a trials tire,
kind of, somewhere. And it's like have the teams get it really developed, really tested to where there is like a spec tire that is it's spec in the sense of like, these are the restrictions. It's this many knobs, this high, like blah, blah, blah. And then I think that could actually be quite a lot better for racing. How do you see that? Or do you think it could work? Or
good question. I'm not sure. Maybe, I think, right now, I mean, the tracks that we have are obviously, they take really good care of them, and they still end up getting, torn down, broken down so much. But it's a tough question, because I mean, it's, you either limit the amount of riders that can ride on it and the amount of laps that goes through, or do something like that. I mean, I'd have to think about that one. That's a tough question, because I mean, if you're going to go out riding on regular tires too, later, like even the tire, right? They're there to promote their tire to sell. Like, they don't want to promote a tire that isn't very good, but it creates better racing for the racetrack. But it's kind of complicated, I guess. It's a tough one to answer, but it's not. I mean, something like that's not a bad idea, or not a. It's a smart idea, I guess.
It's just how you would implement it that actually ticks the boxes.
Yeah. That's a tough. My dad has that same theory, by the way.
Really?
But it's not even because he thinks that it would like keep the tracks from breaking down. He just thinks it would be better traction.
Well, dude, I mean, that's what Casey said as well. It's like you could make a way better tire, like even a flat track tire. Mm-hmm. Like, man, those things hook up, dude.
Yeah.
Like on a hard pack surface with like the top layer of dirt on it that the flat tracks get, very similar to Supercross. It's like, man, you could build a really solid tire that just, because like, do you think the tracks have gotten like just gnarlier over the last handful of years? And this isn't like the track builders have got worse. The tracks are like, that's no, like they still build great tracks, but there's, when you think about A practice, B practice, C practice, C practice, B practice, A practice, do that 3 times, then do heat, like it's too much. Like I think it's just, you're asking so much of a dirt track that you build in under a week. Like I just think that the recipe is wrong. I don't think anyone's doing a bad job, but I just think like the recipe isn't set up right for the tracks to basically handle what we've got. Like, and do you even think that the tracks and how rough they've gotten are even to blame for some of the injuries and crashes? Or
I mean, I would have to think that it doesn't help, like the dragging back at Nashville this year claimed from people, and that thing was easy in the beginning of the day. That's Supercross, like it's not easy. And I'm not saying that it's okay for people to
there's got to be a balance there, right?
Yeah. I think the reason why they're so destroyed now at the end of the night is because we basically have 40 riders going into the main event, and in like a 450 race or class, right? And then the same 250. And contrary to the way it was before, none of them suck. Like they're like I used to be out there at one point, and I was terrible. I shouldn't have been out there, and I wasn't blitzing whoops like properly and all these things. And that's the way it was. Guys wouldn't even do all the triples back in the day. They'd roll and double and do whatever. And now with the quality of all the riders, like every rider that comes in, if you qualify for a night show, you're pretty damn good. Yeah. And all of them can go through whoops, maybe not as good as Jett Lawrence or Chase or something like that, but they can all blitz whoops. And maybe those guys are actually destroying the whoops more than the top guys because they're just hammering right in the middle of them and not going anywhere but ripping it up. So it's kind of that. Like there's guys that can actually ride the tracks and they're riding them well. And there's a lot of riders out there, which is one thing that I thought of before. I'm like, hey, let's limit the amount of riders that race.
I completely agree.
Yeah. But that also kind of hurts what I love about American motocross and supercross is that we give so many people a chance to do it versus in, maybe in Europe or something where you only have these people that can do it. And you can't be an outsider and work your way in without a lot of money or some luck or getting the right opportunity from, whatever. And that kind of sucks. It kind of sucks to have an outdoor with 40 gates, but have 20 guys on it.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. So that is definitely a balance that is tough to keep up on. Like right now, our series is cool because we have the top riders in the world racing supercross and doing these things and motocross. And we also have these dudes over here that are trying to be them. And you can kind of, they're probably never going to be as good, because they're already a little bit older, but they're still getting a chance and people love them, like they get, a lot of like fans just because of who they are, what they are. And that's pretty badass that like you can have both. And it doesn't happen, but maybe some of the penalties are things like that, which at the end of the night when the track is really beat up, that blows me away. There's a couple of things about the riders, the top riders that blow me away. When they ride a track that's slick and snotty and they can still do everything and they're like, yeah, it's really slick, but you and I can't go ride that track without eating it right away. That blows me away, like in the morning and stuff like that, even at the test track. And then also when you look at the track at the end of the night, how like tore up it is and the ruts with the acceleration bumps up and they're still doing all the sections. That is pretty gnarly. And also that kind of separates the men from the boys, which is why I don't know. I don't know if that's such a bad thing, unfortunately though, a lot of people could get hurt doing that. But then again, in the main event, when the track's at its worst, every guy out there is a badass.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a tough one, but it would be nice to be able to figure out something to keep the tracks better. But that's why it hasn't been done yet. It's not an easy answer.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think there needs to just be some hard number where we go, all right, if 10 of the best riders can't make it to every Supercross race, then there's a problem.
Yeah.
And then the years like that needs to be like an active initiative because like you're so right. Like the dudes that are the best are so insanely good. Like what they can do on a track is mind blowing for the level of destruction that is around. Like I remember A3, not last year, the year before. Or maybe it was last year. But it was like Eli and Ando. Only two dudes skimming the whoops. And then maybe it must have been the year before. And then 6 laps into the main event, Eli stops skimming them. And then it's just Ando. And then it's like, that's the baddest motherfucker in the world on a dirt bike tonight. Like, there's no question he's the man because that was basically like grab your nutsack and make it happen. Yeah. And the first dude to stop doing that loses the race. And that was like, to me, that was such an epic, dramatic battle. And it was so, if you know the sport, then you could see like the race was being won right there. And that to me was just unreal.
Yeah.
And you don't get that without like the gnarliest set of whoops.
Yeah.
But 44 dudes got carted off. Like that ruined, that ruined Hunter that year. Like it just, so many people just ate shit because there's no way around it. There's no slower line around the whoops that costs you a second. Maybe there needs to be some of that kind of stuff to where it's like there's like a line that you don't hit the whoops, but it costs you a second no matter what.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. So, but it's like in my head, for the sport to grow and for the sport to like keep progressing, the stars have to be on the gate and healthy. You would see it with Hunter, like from when he first got to America, he was dealing with all those injuries. And it's like he just couldn't have the compounding effect of like bike time working on the bike, time working with the team. Like you just need time and season on season on season to like really get going in this sport. And, you just think about how many guys that got hurt through last year. And I mean, the Tomac thing's like a freak thing, that's not even a crap. That's, so there is, that's what I mean. Like there's room where you'd have to go like, all right, if there's not a minimum of this many dudes making it through the season, like we need to look at it because there's such a crazy balance. I also have an unpopular opinion that maybe supercrossers can't ride supercross. We need to make more teams so like the best privateer dudes actually have a ride and like somewhere to go. But it's like way more structured, way more organized. Maybe motocross becomes the qualifying series, like unless you're scored this many points, like you can't even be able to ride super. That's messy as well. But it's like, because maybe you don't need to change tires. Maybe you don't need. Maybe we just need to figure out how 140 dudes aren't on the floor riding Anaheim. And even let's say you take out some of those practices or whatever, dude. There's how much more longevity you're going to get out of the track if you get rid of 4 practices, and then give then you'd be able to, you wouldn't have to be at a supercross track from 8 a.m. to 2 a.m., like for 17 weekends a year. So anyway, there's like a bunch of those ideas, but it's cool to like, I can think about them all I want, but I don't have any logistical, I've got nothing to deal with on like the other side of those decisions. So it's cool to like get your perspective.
Yeah. And I can tell you that the guys at Feld and MX Sports and AMA and all that, they're having these conversations. It's not like things
no one's thinking about.
They're just like, okay, cool, let's keep going. Like every year they're trying to figure out how to be better, and we are too. And that's the cool thing is that we have a voice as a manufacturer, all of us do. And we all kind of agree on things together, which I don't think was always the norm either. It's kind of the same thing as just communicating at the race. Like I said earlier, like all the rule changes and all these things are all kind of agreed upon with everyone. And we're allowed to bring these ideas. So maybe I'll, bring some of yours.
Yeah, no, sweet. So we'll talk a bit about this year, about the dynamic with the team. Because again, just this insane, crazy concoction of like the 450 title that looked like you lost it, then you won it, then 24-0 outdoors. Jett won his 250. Sorry, 22-0. Old habits die hard, and then Jett winning the lights title, Hunter winning his lights titles. Like it must have just been a crazy year on all fronts, but. What point did you know that Chase was leaving? And then how did that dynamic, like to manage the dynamic between, like him and the brother, like, because it would seem like you got Chase and his dad.
Yeah.
And then you'd have Jett and Hunter and his dad. Right. And it would become like, you'd think as Chase, you're like, oh, sick, I got my dad, I'm here. And then you look on the other side of the rig and you're like being outdone, even on that front where it's like, well, he's got his brother and his dad. So, and very different needs from like the motorcycle. I'm sure it's like best case scenario to just be going 1-2 almost every single moto, but worst case scenario at the same time. And then I'm sure the added dynamic of like Chase going to a different team. Like, so how was that to manage?
I guess to answer one of the questions first is when did I know that Chase was leaving? And it wasn't. I mean, there was
rumors.
We knew that he was talking to more than a few teams, or more than two teams, or more than one team, I guess. And that it was kind of didn't look like super promising, because he'd had a tough 22 other than, outdoors. And so that was really, really, probably what made his decision for him, is just 22 Supercross, I think. But yeah, because we didn't know for sure, and all these things, rumors, and we were never really told that he was signed or anything like that. It wouldn't have mattered in the effort that we did, which it didn't matter in outdoors.
Well, I don't think it ever matters with a team.
I mean, you're always trying to win, right?
100%.
Yeah, and so probably right at the end of Supercross, and I can't remember when it was exactly. And even then, it was like, pretty sure, like it didn't really. I don't know. Wasn't as clear as you would think it would be, even to us. I mean, everybody knew. And we were like, I don't know if, like, we haven't been told it's for sure, so it's kind of hard to know. But anyways, I know that going into the first outdoor that it was clear. And so that was the first time that it was like, before it was like they're rating 250s and Chase on a 450.
Yeah.
Everyone's cool. Yeah. Like we're fine. And even though we'd already done donations and Jett was pretty badass there, and but then at the same time, Chase, they were trying to win the whole event, so it was kind of still a little bit like, I don't know. And then Supercross was pretty much fine, even though we had all those times with Chase. I mean, realistically, Chase should have won that championship by like
170 points.
Yeah, he should have wrapped it up like early. You know? But whatever, it didn't work out that way. And then, so going into the first national, I know at Paula is when that was the first time we know he's leaving. And at the same time, I was worried that Chase and his dad would be like, well, they're going to screw us. They got Jett. They want him to win now because they know we're leaving. And so I wanted to make that clear to them that the first race, like, there's no favorite going into this thing. And to be honest, Chase was the favorite to win. But there wasn't any favoritism on our side to like, we're going to hook this guy up better than him because we want him to win. There's none of that. To be honest, like, we were just wanting to win a championship, and we knew we had the two strongest guys. We're like, we shouldn't screw this one up,
Yeah.
But crazier things have happened, right? So I had a talk with Chase and his motor and with his team crew, and then same thing with the Lawrences too, just to let them know that, like, know you're leaving. We're going to give you everything we can. Want to try to make you as happy as possible. Whatever you need, like, come to us. We'll try to make it work. And all the testing that you need, if you feel like you don't have enough, we'll do more, things like that. So we had all of those options, to make sure that he gets the best opportunity. Both of them get the best opportunity that they need to win. And then also, for me, it was like, I don't want him leaving going, yeah, they screwed me, like whatever. So even up until the last couple of nationals, we were testing with him. I went testing down to Florida and trying to get him into a better spot. And then also for SMX, we did testing for that. And then he came out the first race and worked everybody, so I think if he, I think even for outdoors, if he would have kind of worked a little bit more in the beginning at keeping a Supercross bike for outdoors and just, making it work suspension wise, I think it could have been a little bit different. But then that first round, he got hurt, he hit his head. Well, we went testing on Tuesday, I think it was after Paula, and he already had a big one at the race, but he was obviously fine because him and Jett battled out the second moto. And then at the practice track, he fell and dinged his head. And then it was like, then he was out for 3 rounds. And so that, I guess in a way it made it easier for me.
That would kind of make sense.
Because then the championship was gone, like for Chase. Yeah. So when Chase came back, I think his goal was just like, okay, I just want to win races. But I have to say that he was really impressive. Like every time that he was right there and then didn't get it done, like, he was obviously super disappointed in himself, but he was really professional. He really, like, I think he analyzed probably why like the 2020 Chase wouldn't have been that cool.
Yeah.
Like he made a big progression through the years with us. And that's, he's talked about before, probably with you even too, right?
Yeah.
And so he, like, I think every race they looked at, you know, what he could have done better and what could have been, you know, from our side and from his side. And we always kind of worked on that during the year. It's mind blowing that he wasn't able to win one of the races, you know, battling with Jett. But I am proud that we were able to do everything we could for him and leave, and then except for the last race, of course, and then that you know, the last at the Coliseum.
Yeah.
You know, to be honest, I haven't even seen him since.
Oh, really?
I haven't seen him. It's kind of gnarly. Like I'm in the manager's tower in the middle of the track. I can't leave. The track is all around me.
Wow.
Know? So I can't go to see him because I got to cross the track. I can't. So they, you know, he crashes, gets up and walks off. Bike gets pushed off. Jett has an incredible race with Kenny and wins. So then I come out of the tower. First thing I'm there. There's Jett. Of course, I'm going to celebrate with him real quick. We go to the podium, and I'm like, all right, cool. Let me just do this, and then I want to go check on Chase. And so by the time I was able to do that and go back, he's gone, and I'm like, crap, you know. So I texted with him, and then I was able to get with him a couple of days, and it was fine. I was hoping that we could meet up for dinner or something like that, but it wasn't able to happen. So so I haven't seen him since. So it's kind of a trip.
and yeah, because you think about like the body of work, like the time to put in, and it's crazy just the dynamic in motorsports or just team sports in general, you know, like you just, there would have been hundreds and hundreds of hours of your life consumed by like thinking about how to make him better, how to make his motorcycle better. And then it's just like, poof.
Yeah. It was, that was a bummer that the way that ended. I wish that could have gone a little bit better, but then again, I think he's got a long career, and I think there's a lot more times that we'll be able to talk to him. I'm still going to be friends with him, of course, you know, and hopefully get to kind of hang out with him a little bit and give him a hug, tell him thanks, stuff like that. So
yeah, because I mean, he had just a crazy career at Honda. Like he has had one of the most bizarre careers in the modern era, really. Like if you think about, no one was really talking about him as an amateur, and then he wins. Was it his first series or his second series?
I think it was a second.
Second, yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's like he has that, and everyone's like gifted to him, and then then he goes on his run, and then gets into the 450 class, and then he's killing it. And then the way that he won, I felt so bad for Chase because the way that he won that series, it's like he broke America's heart in a sense. Like everyone, Tomac is an enigma in the sense that he's one of those guys where people don't really know him. They know his mystique. Like they follow it's almost like this ghost kind of figure, you know? So it's like, and then everyone knows that he's about to retire, and like he's just built and built and built, and he's like this all American dude. And he's the guy everyone like wanted to see win. And when he didn't and Chase did, the attention that he got, or like the focus or the way that people thought about his title was so almost tainted. But then it's like, if this dude didn't have these crashes, like no one's even getting a look into this title. Like we would be talking about Tomac, not even like the title being wrapped up before Denver, you know, like forget about Coop. Like he wouldn't have been in it, you know?
Yeah.
So like he's just had such a bizarre career. But in terms of like what he's done for Honda, like he was a huge part of Honda's like new era, you know?
Yeah, no, for sure. The new generation of riders, for sure. He was a huge part of that. And also I know that a lot of people, even that when he won in 20 Supercross, and he was racing with McElrath, right, on Star. And so it wasn't like he dominated that series. Even though he's a big kid on that bike at the time, it wasn't the easiest, but he was damn good. So when we put him on a 450, and that wasn't my decision, you know, that was the guys, that was, you know, Keogh and Brandon Wilson and guys before me. maybe Dan Bentley. But to me, that wasn't a. I know a lot of people were like, I can't believe they're going to put him on a 450 already.
Yeah,
you know,
true
like,
way.
yeah. But to me, it was never a question. It was never like whoa, I don't think he's ready. It was like, let's get him off the 250.
Get him out of there.
Yeah, he's way too big, but I guess being a little bit behind the scenes, like he would ride a 450 at home in Florida at the sandbox with Kenny, and be faster on a stock 450 with factory connection suspension. KYB is what I was going for when we were KYB at the time. And dude, the dude had like a stock engine and suspension. And
was just a beast.
Oh yeah, and he can do, like everybody knows, he can do a lap like better than pretty much anybody in the world. I don't care who it is. You throw down one lap and he's the best, you know. And especially at the time, like he just loves that, you know, like wanting to be like, especially Kenny. Kenny's on a works Honda, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
He's on a production Honda and he goes faster. There's some bragging rights to that, you know, even though Kenny at the time, and which I 100% believe is like, yeah, I don't care. Like, you know, like, you're fast, but Kenny just brings it at the race, you know, and is a beast on his own, right? So, so like that kind of stuff, seeing him on a 450 and how he could control and everything, I thought it was the perfect decision, you know, and it worked out. I mean, he was fastest qualifier at his first national, like at Loretta's, and I think he just needed to mature a little bit in that you know space of not letting it bother him so much not to be the fastest. But you know, now he qualifies fastest in almost every race he goes to still, you know, but so anyways, yeah, he did have a great career, and super proud of him. I mean, I think too, if the amount of races that he should have won, you know, is pretty staggering, and like we said, the championship too. That's why I thought it was cool that I didn't really see a lot of hate on any, you know, not that I went like searching for the message boards or anything, but I think everybody, like, yeah, Eli got hurt and was out, but Chase deserved to win. Yeah. Like he was faster, and he had a lot of races where he was the man or whatever. So that's why I don't think you saw a lot of people hating on, you know, like that it was gifted or anything like that, because in my opinion, he earned that championship, you know, just like, you know, Eli did. Yeah,
no, I completely agree. I just think it's crazy how many weird championships he's been in and won, you know, like, and it's just, there's probably not another dude that has had that happen, you know?
Yeah.
But it's funny too. I think Jett is a really good example of this, and it's why, like, I mean, I've always been a Lawrence brother, like, fan girl, whatever you want to say.
Yeah, but he's Australian, so you like have to be.
That's my boys.
Yeah.
But I would say, like, wait till Jett gets on a 450. And, you know, like, I had Daniel Blair on it. We, like, pretty much predicted the motocross season. You know, I think I even said, like, he literally could get a perfect season outdoors before he ever did a 450 race, because, and Chase falls into this category too, right? You got these bigger kids. The 250, they're slow for those guys. Like Jett right now, you put him back on a 250, he's going to be like, this is so slow. And it's like they've got so much more in the tank. And so it's like these technical freaks in terms of how they ride a bike, but it kind of doesn't matter on a 250 in a sense, because you can still just send it.
Yeah.
You know, but when you get on a 450, you need a bit more mass, like you need a bigger frame, and then that's when that technique really, really comes into play. And I think Chase was one of those dudes where it was like, yeah, you could see it. You're like, we need to get him off this bike, because like the technical base that he's got mixed with the size means that get him on a 450 ASAP, because he is going to go so fast. And you know, you can see the guys that spent their entire career just sending it on a 250 get to a 450, and it just becomes a problem for them to deal with, you know?
Yeah.
And those are two guys in particular. And that's why I think you're going to see Hunter do really good this year, because he has that same technical base as Jett. Yeah. You know, I think really the only difference between Jett and Hunter is like a couple of inches of length on like their levers in terms of their arms and legs.
Yeah.
And it's like, but that technical base is so important for a 450, and like all of those guys had that.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, I think, Jett, other than having a little height on Hunter, they're pretty similar. But yeah, Hunter's funny, huh? Because you watch him and he doesn't do anything that's like really flashy, or you don't see him. Like this just happened at test track last week or whatever, where he's riding and he looks good, definitely good, but nothing really where you're like, man, he's ripping now.
Yeah.
But then Jett he's going 3-4 in this section. It's huge. He comes into the whoops and just, absolutely demolishes them, and whatever. And Hunter had a better lap time. And I'm like, how's that possible?
Yeah.
And that happens sometimes when if it wasn't a stopwatch on it, you'd never guess. But yeah, it's just two different types of it's like the intensity, or because the styles are not that different.
Yeah.
But Jett's just a little bit got a weird flashy style, and Hunter's very efficient. So
I just think there's a thing in the sport where jiu-jitsu makes me think about this, because it's basically all leverage. So it's like, I would never think about your arms and legs as levers. And so in jiu-jitsu, that's all it is like, you've got these short dudes work. It's like this, and this works awesome for these guys with shorter arms and shorter legs. None of that stuff works for me, because like the levers are just the leverage is out. So it's like, it's different. And that just made me think about moto, like you think about the style and the inputs that you can have on the bike. It's like Jett and Hunter, they're almost a copy, but it's just one's got a little bit more height and length. And it's like, that's basically it. Like the difference in the movements, and like there's just more. It's like there's, for the same input that Jett and Hunter give, Jett would look a little bit different, because there's like more input to give that same input in terms of like the length of his levers, That's like pretty much, I think, the only difference. And like, I think that plays out in like whoops, especially now with the way the guys are on their toes and like dropping their heels down, that like their lowest point is now their heel, you know what I mean? So like you're actually taking like leverage off your legs. So a dude with longer legs is going to be able to apply like that technique in a different way, and he's going to look different while he's doing it. But yeah, I literally think it's just a matter of longer arms, longer legs, but they are pretty much a carbon copy. And Hunter, I sent him some videos in outdoors this year. I think it was like, there was one from, pretty sure it was High Point, and it was just in quali or practice. And it was one of the big downhill right hand, like downhill kind of sweepers. And it was just, he was railing the outside rut, and it was like a deep national rut, right? And there were these braking bumps in it. And he literally just goes, bink. And he just jumps down all of it and just lands in it was out of control. Like I filmed it and sent it to him. I was like, what the fuck? He goes, oh, that's cool. I didn't even know I was doing it. And it's like, that's the level that's the top of the sport now. It's just gone so insane. And I think we were like very captivated early on with like Stewie. Obviously started with Jeremy, and then you get Ricky with like the crazy send style, and then James with the scrub. And it's like everyone's kind of caught up to that in a sense. And it's like now we're just seeing this crazy level of technicality, especially because the bikes have so much power as well. It's like they're not getting ridden to their full potential. So it's almost like so much of the details in the sport now is just like finesse, throttle control, like playing with the track. It's really cool to see the evolution.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody asked me about that, but like their technical level of riding being like the thing that they're going to teach now, or, for kids and everything. And yeah, maybe to me, there's been so many different riders through the years that have their own thing, like K-Dub obviously had like this perfect style that everyone wanted to emulate, including me.
Yeah.
And then Jeremy, obviously, and then Dunge and all these guys, like I don't see anything that they do that's like so different than everybody. I guess to me, it's just like they just took kind of everybody's best attributes and they're they're going to take those, and the jumping the bumps and thing is like a little bit more Jett's making and 102. Like that's kind of their
in vogue.
Yeah, exactly. They've definitely to be able to, I mean, people have jumped braking bumps and stuff like that since the beginning of time, but to do it in a way that like Jett did it, like at Southwick and some of these races, like he's already so fast that he's able to do that and not like, so a lot of times it's not really faster, you would think, because you're having to kind of slow down and, jump it or whatever. But he's able to do it, incorporate it into a fast time, at the same time without losing anything. And it's crazy that he can make that work and still be fast, still be faster,
It just, you could see, did you go to Loretta's this year?
Yeah, I was there for a day and a half when it rained like pretty much the entire time.
Okay. I don't think I saw you because I think I pretty much stayed in the motorhome the entire time that day. But you could visibly see it at Loretta's. Yeah. Like the Lawrence effect.
Oh,
like,
for sure, yeah.
Oh, it was in like after the finish line, if you come onto the start straight, everyone was like jumping off that and like everyone from the first lap of practice, as soon as there was bumps, like that was kind of like the new thing. You're right, people have been doing it forever. I think now though, to me, I feel like it has something to do with how much power the bikes have. Because it's almost like before, you think of like Ricky two-stroke days where it was just bury the thing, steer it with the rear wheel and just hold the thing wide open. And it's almost like that, like the style wouldn't have come into play as much then because it's like you were just trying to extract everything out of the bikes, and it just, maybe it's like nowadays not the case, and so they're playing with it more.
Maybe, but like in 03 when Ricky was on a 250 and Kato was on a 450, and they had such different styles, and Kato was able to flow and do all these things, and I don't know, like I'm not sure if he would have been able to, if he did do some of those things, and if there was a guy, it would have been him. He was like that, right? But I don't remember it being like one of those noticeable things where he's able to do this and then make up time.
Yeah.
Or whatever. It was almost like maybe it didn't seem like at the time it was like, yeah, that's awesome. And it's smooth and it keeps you like,
it's not faster.
But it's not faster. Yeah. You're doing whatever. And maybe if you got a big lead, you can do that because whatever. But yeah, Jett's able to do it. And like I said, keep like improving his time. So I don't know what he's figured out how to do that and and be faster. I don't know how else to word it really,
So what was that era like, that 02, 03, 04 era to be involved in HRC? Because you had Ricky, perfect season in 02, perfect season in 04, changing from two-stroke to four-stroke. That's probably the biggest technical shift that we've had in the sport maybe ever. Yeah. And you were right there with those guys. Like, what was that era like?
Yeah, that era was awesome, obviously. And at the time, like we had no HRC. It was just American Honda,
Yeah, okay.
Which now obviously it's American Honda with HRC support from Japan, so that's why we're Honda HRC. Huh. So
I actually didn't know that difference.
Yeah. Well, HRC is a Honda Racing Corporation in Japan.
Yep.
And they're huge now, and they've moved that whole company into four-wheel too, which is I think is awesome. Like, it's on Max Verstappen's Red Bull now, he's got it on his arm, and so they've made it all. And even HPD here, the IndyCar, they're going to be HRC next year, HRC sick. US.
That's massive, I think.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's so sick for the sports.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. And so at the time when we were, we had Woody Graphics and American Honda, it was basically, it was really, when I started there, it was the summer 2000, and K-Dub was leaving, and he went to Suzuki for 01. I think that's when he broke his femur maybe in Supercross.
I think so.
Took a year off and then came back for that 03 season. So when we got, what's funny is that when I started there, they hadn't won in 3 years, and it was like a lifetime to them. I remember that because Jeremy left in 96, and then that new aluminum frame came out in 97, 98, 99. They got Lusk in 98, and
feels so bad for Lusk.
But he at one point there in 98, 99, dude, he was awesome on that thing.
Yeah.
And then the 2000 was actually a really good bike. 2000 and 2001 were the only 2 years of that generation. That was the first CR250 I had, and the thing was bitching.
They were good in that.
That one was good. Yeah. And the engine was unbelievable. And, but So when I started there, it was like they hadn't won forever. Lusk should have won, but for whatever reason, he never was able to. K-Dub too. And then so those first few years when we got Ricky, it was like that feeling before we got Ricky was like kind of what we had these last 20 years. Like, what do we got to do to win? Like, and especially if you think about what the team they had in 99, they had 4 riders and they were all gnarly. It was like Lusk, Tortelli, Pichon, and who am I blanking on for the fourth guy? Somebody, K-Dub.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, duh. And so, and then they, not only that, but they had LaRocco.
Yeah.
On whatever. So like that 1 year at Glen Helen, we went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. With Ryan Hughes, coming from Europe too, and still weren't able to win. So when Ricky came, it was like, all right, he's won on all these things. Like can he win with us? That's the kind of feeling that I got. Like everybody, I think, was like, we're gonna kick everybody's ass now. We got Ricky, which is what happened. But at the time, I remember like it wasn't like. I remember thinking like, man, he kind of better win, like, or else we're gonna look real bad. And I was just a shop kid, like who, not like I knew anything about what was going on behind the curtain, But then that year, 02 was great. Obviously, he went 24-0, like totally kind of brought everything back on. I remember it became so routine that he would win. It was just like, yeah, we're gonna win. It was like, and I didn't like that feeling. I still don't. Like. This summer with Jett and everything, it sucks that when you get used to it and there's no real, like, I don't know if there's a way around it because when you don't win for that long and then you finally win, that feeling is what you're always chasing. It's like you're chasing the dragon. Yeah. And every time you win and you win another weekend, you win another weekend.
You get further away from that feeling.
Yeah. And you're like, and I stressed it with the team all year. I'm like, hey, this might not last forever. So let's soak it up. Let's really absorb it and not get used to it. And it's kind of hard not to. And I hate that. But that's how it felt then with Ricky. So when K-Dub came in and we had a new 450 and he wanted to ride again and it was all kind of a relaxed atmosphere, I helped him a lot, like with him and his mechanic, because his mechanic was a new mechanic at the time. And we ended up, going outdoors with him that year. In the first race, like he should have won, and then he crashed. And then the second race, he did beat Ricky the first moto, like finally. And then that whole summer, just such a cool experience because, I think even like the thing I remember the most is Honda having a commercial, and it was, they raced all summer long, totally different styles, totally different bikes, but they were right next to each other battling. And K-Dub won, I think he won 2 overalls and a couple motos during the year. Ricky won everything else, crazy. But they made a commercial I knew it was like 2-stroke or 4-stroke, which one you want? That kind of like, that was the commercial, whatever. And it showed them battling, and that's what I remember from that time of just, us dominating that summer and whatever, and then getting to know K-Dub. He's like, one of my favorite riders.
One of the coolest people too. Just the nicest, coolest dude.
Yeah, super, super rad guy. And just getting to become like, know him and Ricky too. Like, I mean, all those guys. Ricky's not much older than me, but, growing up, like I was on 80s and he was like a legend already, and just seeing him in magazines and stuff he would do on an 80. And he's in that video, a Terra Firma video with Lusk when he's like whipping it, and I'm blowing my mind. Yeah. And, so getting to become friends with all those, and at the time being young and being kind of like just a fan, and wanting to ride myself and things like that, that was pretty rad to get to be involved with those guys and also learn from all the guys at Honda at the time. There's a bunch of legendary mechanics and, Eric Kehoe coming on board in 02 and all those people, road racing. And then the road race team was right next door. So our shop was like exploding, with stuff. We had Nicky Hayden. So it was, that whole time was unbelievable.
And what in your mind, like if you can transport your mind back to 03, and what was your take on 4-strokes and like what would happen in the industry when it came to like that whole deal?
I remember that we were able to get our carburetor really good, and that when that happened, it was like that. It was kind of funny. I think I remember specifically somebody saying, "Hey, maybe in the future there'll be two-stroke nationals," and everybody kind of laughing. And it was like not that many years after that there was like two-stroke, yeah. And now there's like two-stroke revival or whatever. And like there's all people still doing it. But I do the one thing that I kind of take away from end of 03 was Ricky riding a 450 in Supercross, and he was always kind of like that. I think everybody kind of felt the same way, that it was like, yeah, outdoors 450 is okay, but Supercross, no way. It's just too heavy and too big and all this and blah, blah, blah. And then Ricky, we were struggling a lot with that 02 CR250, 03, 04.
Oh, once it went to the power valve.
Yeah, once it went to case read versus a cylinder intake, for the intake, it was it just didn't have any torque.
So that was more of a big deal than the power valve, you think, like the actual read?
Yeah,
okay.
For sure. Yeah, because the read, the different power valve, we could have probably got away. I mean, it wasn't like completely different than the power valve that was in before. I mean, it worked similar anyways. But yeah, the case read being so much lower was what gave it so much top power, which outdoors the thing freaking hauled ass. Yeah. But for a Supercross, when they're coming out of corners and trying to do threes out of turns, Yamaha was so good. And the Yamaha was basically our engine from the year before. Like it was exactly like in the chassis, the chassis and everything. I swear at those years in that like 02, 03 Yamaha was a 96 CR250. I mean, it was, you take that thing and look at, like, you take the plastic off and everything and look at them together. They're the same. Huh. It's crazy. So, that obviously was hard to compete with especially with a guy like Chad Reed and Villaman or whatever. So Ricky rode that 450 at the Supercross track, and it was K-Dub's bike. Went back. I think he took a couple, or maybe Ramsey's. I can't remember now. But he rode. He's like, hey, let me try that thing. And it was like a month before Anaheim. And he was struggling with the CR, and I think he was pretty pissed because we hadn't made, or Japan hadn't made the improvements either with torque that we wanted. And so he rode that thing, rode a couple laps, just cruising around, and did like the same lap time. And he came in and he's like, yeah, whatever. And we're like, you just did about the same lap time. And I remember him going like, dude, I'm not even trying in the whoops. Like the thing is getting so much more traction. And he's like, I want to race. Like he was like, hey, can I race this? And I remember them at the time, like we don't think it's possible. There's not enough time to order parts. There's this and that. But it was Ricky Carmichael. So they're like, let's see what we can do. And like later that night, they're like, let's build a bike. And then the next day, I think he went and rode it. And then we went to Castillo Ranch, and that's when he popped his knee out. So, or when it's, so that was kind of, and then he went outdoors and won every race on it. So, and I think even to this day, when you ask, if you were to ask him what his favorite bike was, that 04 450 was like his favorite of all time.
Dude, that's so sick. Like as a fan to hear that is so rad, because that to me, like that 04, I mean, I was a Chad Reed fan, obviously. Like I had this Aussie dude to cheer for, and then there was Burner, there was Medi, there was Sharky. Like, so for an Aussie kid, and we couldn't even watch the races live. Like we had to wait, or we'd wait to bar to like watch all the races. But man, like that era of like being a Chad Reed fan, like being an Aussie and having so many guys represented, and then to have Ricky on a 450, on 250 and 450, and then James, like, man, what a crazy, crazy time. And like, man, what could have been if Ricky got to race that 4-stroke indoors. Yeah.
It would have been cool. I mean, well, I guess he ended up getting to see that in like 06 when he was on a Suzuki. But yeah, not really the same. It would have been cool to have him be healthy that year for sure. But yeah, he was able to make up for it in outdoors. So, and I think that break that he got
probably was
good for him.
Yeah, probably extended his career.
Yeah.
Like imagine if he won, let's say he just wins every Supercross and then wins every motocross.
Yeah.
Like, dude, he'd probably gone. It's probably just like, that's it. Like I did good.
Yeah. I mean, he was a beast for sure.
Actually, it's funny you say that. So I have a project in mind. I don't even know if I'll leave this bit in the podcast. So this year, I've actually got a draft email ready to send to Honda, but I'd need your help on it. I want to actually build, so I'm going to buy a 2002 CR250, a 2004 CR450, and a 2023 CR450. And I want to do a build. I want to get them all up to spec as good as I can, and I want to drive them to Florida to the dog pound. I want to put number 18 on them, and the whole concept is like the perfect motorcycle. So it's like, what did Honda do to create 3 technically perfect motorcycles? And how sick would it be to see Jett ride all those generations of perfect season bikes?
Yeah, that'd be pretty badass.
So would you be able to help me with that if I pull the trigger and make it happen?
I think that would be really, really cool to try to do. Yeah. I mean, yeah, definitely try.
Sick.
I wonder though, if it's just going to go for something like that, I wonder if we can do it like properly with like the bikes. Yeah. Cause I have the 450.
Really?
And we have a CR250. Where's that thing? It might be in Georgia, but either way.
Would they let him ride those bikes?
Yeah. At the right time.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we were going to do this one thing where, we let Kenny ride that 96.
So that was the bike. I thought it was your bike.
No, it's Jeremy's bike.
Okay.
That was Jeremy's practice bike from back in the day.
Yeah, right.
And then he gave it to me, and I basically rebuilt it and added it, made it legit as much as I could. But we have a Jeremy bike right now that we found that was completely original, all there, everything. And so we have it all apart right now, restoring it to have a proper
Where'd you find it?
We had an offsite storage unit, and
fuck off.
and so there's all these bikes that have kind of just been put away over the years, and up on the top of the rafters of one of them, we put them all in plastic, and I'm sure somebody knew. We had all these bikes, not just dirt bikes, but street bikes and road race bikes and production bikes and all these things. So I always kind of knew what they were. And then up there, I ended up looking, there was, I knew kind of about this one, a Steve Lamson 96 motocross of Nation CR125.
Yeah.
Like the legit bike. And then we looked more, and there was a Jeremy number 1, kind of somewhat of a hodgepodge of a 95, 96 graphics wise, but everything there, I know a lot of people build these 95, 96s, and they put them up on Instagram or wherever they put them up, or they bring them to the race, and they're like, check out this, tribute bike, or whatever you want to call it, replica. And I know enough about that bike to where I'm like, yeah, that's wrong. But that's cool. Like, good job on that. But there's so many little things that I know about that bike, including the patchwork that was done. So when I have the legit bike, it's like,
you need, you can tell.
That's right. Right. I'm like, shit, everything on this thing is right. That this is a good bike.
No way. How did you feel finding that thing? That's one of that's a Ferrari. You know what I mean? That's
right. It's like a barn.
Yeah, that's like an original. That's one of the. It's like a unicorn type motorcycle.
Right. Yeah, and we have 2 proper ones. There's one in Japan too, actually. When I was there at Motegi, that is proper. But yeah, so there's a few that we have for display. So this one was not super necessary for the company to, but we're like, this thing is rad. So I'm hoping to do some cool things with that bike. But the bike that Ken rode was a proper frame, proper, parts. Just a few things weren't. So I kind of made it as legit as possible, made it look like cherry. And then Ken rode it and loved it too.
That's so good.
Yeah.
I have one in Oz. I bought it. I think I paid $6,800 for it.
Really?
And it was in COVID, and I was looking for another one. We did a 125 project bike build, and so we had a company that was sponsoring us with that. So it was all right, we got to find this bike. So I'm on bike sales trying to find this Husky 125, and I see that, and I call the dude, and I'm like, bro, where do you live, and how much do you want? And he's like, he was 2.5 hours away. I fucking cancelled all my plans. I couldn't even get the money out of the bank. Banks these days don't like giving you cash. So I just carried on. at the bank to give them. I think they gave me like $5,000, and then I just literally drove to ATMs and I was like getting the cash out because I was like, holy shit, I'm buying this. It was a fully stock, like original. And I've rode it heaps too. Like it's a unreal bike. I'm going to try and buy one here because I have another project. I want to do like a resto mod. Like, you know how they do in cars?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to get a 96, but I want to put like the newest forks on it, the newest shock, Brembo brakes, or like, you know, just get everything as dialed as possible and just like fully do the motor, like modern seat, you know, just really make that even like a alloy tank or something, just to make it like, how good could you make this bike? Because they're awesome.
Yeah.
Like riding, I loved riding. I think I was rebuilding my 350. So I had months where I just rode that bike, and the motor is so good on that bike.
Yeah, no, those things are super fun. And Ken, when he rode it too, I think it was kind of like outdoor suspension, but we had it redone. But it was the old works Showa stuff, and the jetting. It was like cold in the morning, and then it ended up heating up quite a bit up at Castillo Ranch, and so it ran. I think it ran a little bit rich towards the end of the day, but it was in the morning when it was like really, really clean. It just sounded so killer, you know. And it was a Red Bull shoot, so they had a bunch of good footage of it, great pictures of it, and so yeah, that was like one of those super fun things that I got to do too. But that bike, the Ricky 2003, I think I can't remember, like I said, where we have it, but that would be cool to do something like that.
Yeah, because in my head, like I think it's a cool concept to just see, okay, this is 20 years of motorcycles essentially, and like in that 20-year span, 3 of them from the same manufacturer got a perfect season.
Yeah.
And in my head, I'm like, because the 08 was unreal, like that 08 450. I had an 04 250F. That was my first ever big bike 4-stroke. And I mean, I remember them being good. Yeah. Like I remember the carby, like, you know, that bog if you didn't have it set up right. But I mean, I remember I had like posters of that bike on my wall, the 04, like just the White Brothers exhaust and like the cutout seat, the cut subframe.
Like Andrew Short or something?
I think it was Ricky's bike. Like
I thought you were talking about the CRF 250.
No, sorry, the Ricky's 450.
Okay.
Just like that year, that bike, like everything about that thing was just porn.
Yeah.
And I just wonder, like, how good could we make one now? And I mean, maybe that's what we could do in the video, is like have him ride the bikes as they were, and then have like a build, like newer builds where it's like, because I don't even know what you could do nowadays to get them better. Like, could you get an 04 better nowadays with like tech and parts that are available than back then? Or I don't know.
I mean, you'd still have to run a carburetor. Yeah. So that would be the limiting factor. Yeah. But suspension wise, yeah, for sure. You could bolt on whatever we got nowadays. But even then, the suspension might be better in certain ways, but it's not going to get you another 2 seconds a lap, I don't think. Yeah. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what the differences are, especially if you set it up for him.
That's what I want to do.
Yeah. Because if you rode it like the way Ricky rode it, he'd hate it.
Exactly.
With how low and everything like down. Even the 04 wasn't as bad as the 02.
That thing looked crazy.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. Even Ricky, when he sees it now, like he's like, "You guys are jacking with me." He like Goose, we were at somewhere not that long ago, and he's like, he knows now. He's like, "Get that thing out of here." He's like, "You guys try to make it seem like I rode the thing like this bad," and Goose is like, "This is how it was. You wanted it this way. This is why we did it." And 02 especially, 03 kind of, graduated a little bit to like what we were pushing for to get him a little bit more neutral. Or, and I say like we. At the time, I was just like, maybe I drove the box fan there, but I'm standing there like, helping them work on it, and they're making decisions in the truck. So I didn't know jack, other than what I'd overheard, I guess. But yeah, so like, I mean, Jett would absolutely hate that thing. Pretty much everybody would. So, but to make it, more like a K-Dub, if you rode a K-Dub spec bike, that would be a Jett Lawrence spec. They're probably very similar in what they would like.
That's sick. Yeah. Because my idea would be, I'll just go buy one of them, like they're still around, And then it's like we fully tear the thing down, full restoration. Like if I had to make a pipe, like Yoshi would get Yoshi to make a pipe, like just make it as modern as possible, like Jett's bar bend, like just everything to spec. Because even just to know, like, how much faster would you go on a new?
Right.
I mean, they're way better, but it's like what translates, like how I think it would be a super interesting, and even just to see Jett on a 252 stroke as well, like
right.
you know, he just skipped that entire.
Yeah.
You know, that entire part of the sport, you know?
Right.
So it'd be very interesting to see the difference.
Yeah. No, that'd be fun. I think we would probably want to take the reins on building the bike from you. No offense.
Oh, okay.
Because this happened before with Ken.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they wanted Ken, you know, to do straight rhythm real bad. And I think it was maybe in his deal too. So they're like, check out this guy. He built this bike on YouTube. Let him have a go, you know. And it's like November before the first, you know, Supercross, and we're like, we can't do that. So we had to, we did it, and it ended up being awesome because he won straight rhythm on a 20 or whatever it was at the time. I mean, 15-year-old bike, beating all the modern bikes that are brand new. So that was pretty rad. But
I feel like I'm down to let the HRC Honda team, like,
you think so?
help me do the bike.
I appreciate it.
I'll do a lot of the legwork. I'll do some of the
that would be good. Yeah,
I'll do some of the. I'll do the vapor blasting. I'll do all the cleaning. I'll do all.
We'll let you come by the shop, and then we'll lay out everything that you can do.
That actually would be. I'd be down because I'm a full nerd.
Yeah,
like, I'm not the best, but I'm like a full blown nerd. I love building bikes. That's my little favorite pastime.
Yeah. That'd be cool.
We should definitely do it. The difference between riders is how hard is that to manage sometimes in terms of just what they're asking. Like, so I had a friend who I won't name who did some suspension testing and like he rode Kenny's Honda 450 and then he rode Christian's Honda 450 when they were teammates for outdoors, and was just like, bro, fuck Ken Roxon's suspension. But Christian Craig sets up the most beautiful motorcycle I've ever ridden.
Yeah.
So it's like,
I agree.
How is that to deal with?
I think you have to kind of, I'm going to say swallow your pride or your ego, but it's not really the right word to say it either. Because what I like, I've ridden Christian's bikes when we were KYB. I thought his bike was unbelievable. And then I rode it in 20 when he filled in, and that was Showa, and that was unbelievable. Whatever way he pushes the development of his bike fits me awesome. I still talk about Christian's bike especially from those. Yeah, because it just, the feel of I guess it's mainly suspension. What he likes apparently is what I like.
Yeah.
You know, it just feels plush but firm, and we talk about this all the time. With, you know, the guys at the shop and all that. But what I like, and like I said, what he likes is not the same for everyone. There's not one thing. And yeah, Kenny's a prime example of that. And then, or Chase, you know, or someone like, you know, they're different styles. And I can't, like, when I'm like, you just rode that and then you rode that, you really didn't pick that? That's what I feel like, you know?
Yeah.
But it makes me realize, like, this guy is one of the gnarliest guys in the world. I think he kind of knows what he likes. And if he doesn't like that and he likes this, it just makes me realize that not everybody's the same.
Yeah, there is no objective good.
Yeah, you can't just which makes it extremely tough for a production bike, right? To make one production bike setup that works good, like everybody's going to be like, dude, this thing's good, you know? Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's impossible to make something that's kind of right down the middle of the road. Yeah. And whatever. And, but yeah, those kind of situations make me just kind of realize that, like, people are so different in what they want. And, plenty of people had told Ken or Ricky back in the day, perfect example.
Well, he's the perfect example.
Yeah, like how are you riding this thing? And it's just, yeah, some people they don't understand, but for that guy it makes sense. And I mean, Ken with his setup was kind of especially at the time, maybe 19 and 20 and 21 maybe. a Unadilla. His bike is low in the front, kind of soft in the front. At least it looks that way, right? And the shock's up high, and it looks like it would be really nervous that way, like anything would be. And the dude dominates at the ruddiest, gnarliest track and just murders everybody. So it's just like the different strokes for different folks kind of deal. You know, it's hard to understand for me especially.
And so like, where do you draw the line at letting a dude just be like the weirdest guy? Because so I know a story of Dean Ferris gets signed to CDR Yamaha, and they're basically just like, nah, like that's not how we're doing this suspension, because he has like a real funky setup that he likes. He just come off winning a bunch of stuff in Europe, and he like had the setup and then went there and they shut it down. And then he basically just cracked the shits, flew to America with stock suspension, but like valve for him. Like he had his guy do it the way he wanted, and I think that's when he got that third at High Point. And then that was the highlight of his year. Like he just, because they were not down to like let him go in that direction. And then there's another one. Oh, and then the same thing happened to him when he was riding for Yamaha here, when he got the factory ride.
Oh, yeah.
And they were just like, no,
right,
not doing it. And they gave him the bike that like they thought worked. So where's the line? Like, have you ever had that situation where it's like you've almost pulling rank? Like, nah, bro, we can't. Like, no one can run a Ricky setup from O2 now. Like, is that, if like, let's say Jett came to you and was like, this is how I ride, bro.
Yeah, it'd be hard to argue with a guy like Jett, and it was hard to argue with a guy like Ricky. I mean,
I suppose,
you know, when you go 24-0 and your bike looks like that, you can't really come at him. Well, I mean, but even then, we did. I mean, at that time, outdoors was one thing. I mean, he had those guys handled, but Supercross, the way, especially in the whoops, like it was tough for him. And we're like, hey, it's because of this, and you kind of like have to fight that, I guess, to try to get them. I mean, even Chase in outdoors, you know, like didn't want to run his Supercross like chassis and everything like that. We were very confident it was better, but the balance for me is like, if the rider believes so strongly that he's right, it's going to be tough for you to go, no, you're wrong. Yeah. And like, are you really going to get the best rider, like the best out of your rider? And also, you know, like Tim Geiser's thing, like happy rider, fat or whatever. The guy's got to be happy and feeling like you're, you know, so to be able to convince him to do that is tough sometimes. But then again, I guess I haven't had something where I'm like, you're completely out to lunch, bro. Like we're not doing that. And some of the things, it'd have to be really, really out there, and mainly like a safety issue for us to like go
throttle. Something weird.
Yeah.
I want 2 throttles.
Yeah. Or like, hey, I drilled a big hole in my frame. Like, you know,
Back
it feels
home.
better.
Yeah.
You know, yeah,
like,
exactly.
Hey, bro, we can't do that.
Yeah. Stuff like that is like, you got to kind of like talk to them in a way and make them realize like, okay, this is why. It's not just because we don't want to try. It's tough when it comes to suspension and, you know, guys coming with like what they've brought like that. I haven't had to deal with that much, but at the same time, I don't think that we would be too proud or anything to consider other alternatives, you know. Like if there's something you love about that, let's figure out what that is and try to make it work with what we've got, you know, while incorporating the things that we know. Yeah. It would probably be more something like that rather than just, hell no, we're not doing that, you know, because then they're just pissed, and then they're like, oh, screw this guy. They don't want to work with me anyways. Yeah,
that makes sense. So for people that are listening to this that might not know that 2002 setup,
yeah,
could you explain to someone that never saw Ricky's bike what he was working with?
Yeah, I mean, like the bike in stock form doesn't look too much different than any modern bike currently, right? Like, you know, height-wise and everything like that. I think, and I could maybe butcher some of this because at the time, like I said, 2002, I'd only been working there like a year and a half, and
You're really still on the broom at this point.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and so, anyways, but I mean, his subframe was cut. Like right now, we talk about cutting subframes, and we're like 5 mil, sometimes like getting a little bit crazy. 2.5 mil, we'll cut that. That's nothing. I mean, what 2.5 mil looks like when you open your finger. People that don't know, it's like that.
Yeah.
It's nothing.
It's a quarter of a centimeter.
Yeah. So that's your butt getting that much further down, right, on the thing. I mean, Ricky's, we were like minus 30. Like the subframe was like so low. And not only that, but his shock was really soft and extremely dead. Like the rebound was so strong that it would just come in and just slowly come back, and be soft. And any video you watch him riding, the back end of the bike is way down and it's doing this, but he loved it. Like he never wanted it to hit him in the butt. So that, and then the seat would be like cut down. The seat was cut down. And for a while we had like XR foam out of an XR like 600 or 400 or something. That foam cut onto our seat, and he would bring the seat from his house sometimes and be like, "Here's my seat," and it'd be thrashed. And Goose is like, "Bro, like we have a brand new seat," and he's like, "Yeah, but this one feels good, so like put this one on, put a new seat cover on it, and run it for the race." Fork wise, I think it was probably somewhat normal, but because the rear was so low, But the biggest thing I guess was his handlebars. Like his bar mounts. Like now we would never, we used to have a top clamp with a front hole mount, which was basically like kind of what stock is now, and a back. So there was like, the way that they designed it was really cool. Like they've had it forever. The clamps design of our bar mounts on HRC is the same that it's been since like the 90s.
Wow.
Yeah, it's basically the same concept. It's, you have the front mount, and then you can go back 3, back 6, back 9. And if you go to the back hole, if you went back 9, it'd be the opposite. Like you would get to what if it was like back 12.
Yeah.
And then you can go back, and then you can go back the other way. He had like back 9 off the back hole mount way back there, and his handlebars rolled down to where they're like all the way down. And they're 999s, whatever, so they're like really low. They're
no sweep, just flat.
Oh, and they're just way down like this. And it was, and I wrote it like that actually. We did a magazine like tryout, or like we let like Dirt Rider or somebody ride it, and we wouldn't let them change the bars. It was like, you got to ride it like that. It was super funny, but super hard to ride. But I remember riding that thing that you'd go over like a kicker or braking bump or something like that, and you wouldn't even feel it. The back would just soak it up, and you just went in the turn. I guess if you had a bunch of them and you started packing, and then it's doing this, that'd be another story, like it did for him a lot. But it was kind of a crazy cool feeling to have that much rebound and not have the thing do anything. You literally, like, you went through it like you never went through a bump. And then, as long as it wasn't too many of them, it was great,
Yeah.
That his whole setup, as far as rear and handlebar, everything else was pretty normal, I guess, when it comes to engine setup and all that, gearing, whatnot. But yeah, that was pretty gnarly. That was a trip.
And what was he looking for out of it? Like, what did he? So he didn't want to get kicked in the rear, which makes sense because short legs.
Yep.
I got kicked World Vets one time, like bad on the hill, and I had my first moment of being like, "Oh, fuck this!" Like thinking about what actual pros have to deal with, and I got so fucking scared. I thought I was done.
Yeah.
So like he obviously was trying to ride around like having to basically worry about that.
Yeah, and he was coming off the Cowie, and the Cowie was still to this day, I think, has a kind of the
it's like a rear weight bias kind of.
Yeah, exactly. So at least that's what people say. So, like RV loved the back low kind of thing. That's kind of what he did. So coming off that Cowie, where he already had that kind of feel, he got on our bike, and then he made it even more like trying to make it feel the way he was comfortable from the past. So, but yeah, I never wanted to get hit in the butt because he was already, pretty short. So he was just looking for that. But it obviously, he was able to win the championship in 2002, but it was, I'm not sure if he would agree, but I would imagine that's one of his hardest championships he's ever had to win, because he crashed at the first race, and like when he went over the bars and into the whoops, LaRocca ran him over and stuff.
Yeah.
And he had to come back from that, like DNFing that race, and still won the championship and won a bunch of races. But it was also the most difficult. And then he had to deal with Chad, who was a beast in the whoops, and he had to be better. So then he was able to work his way up, bring the rear up a little bit, handlebars up a little bit. And then, like I said, in 2004, his outdoor bike was like not that bad compared to any of that. It was way different than what he had in 02.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's just so cool to hear because like that is iconic, and like it feels like nowadays everyone's kind of in the ballpark.
Yeah,
like there's not really crazy setups in the way that there used to be, and it's kind of cool looking back now that was the best dude, and he had the most unique setup.
Yeah, except for the Lawrence's levers or levers, as you like to say.
Yeah, yeah.
They're
and
like so far in.
the one thing I don't know, we can cut this bit out too, but like their steering, dude.
Yeah, it's weird, huh?
Bro, like I don't know if that's like a secret thing, but holy fuck.
Yeah, no, I mean I think it's not really a secret, but if you push the handlebar on the, try to make the bar turn like this, and you just push the left, the entire bike will turn on the stand, like easily. Yeah, but the same thing there. Like you might get to a team and they go, no, we're not doing that. Like they came from Geico and they had a steering damper and they had to have it. It wasn't going to be like one of those things where we're like, even though we don't think we need that anymore, like we did before. It's just like, if that's what makes you comfortable or whatever, let's see how it goes. So we had to make that work because it didn't come stock anymore.
Yeah, well, I asked Jett and Florida on the shoot, and I was just like, "What's the deal?" And he's like, "I just hate head shake."
Yeah,
he just said, I guess in Ricky's like getting hit in the ass. Maybe sometimes it's just like that simple. Obviously, it's just like one thing. If I don't have this, I'm sweet.
Yeah.
And yeah, Jett was like, I fucking hate head shake. Never want to get it in my life.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
And
that seems like it'd stop that.
A lot of those things too. I think Darren, growing up, like he was kind of learning everything on his own. So I know that the lever thing, right? Like they were kind of on a tight budget. If the thing crashes and the lever's out there, they're going to break. They were in, and I'm sure at the same time he's going, man, there's better leverage out here.
Yeah.
Because they're way in, so I can grab them here. And all those things come into play because Darren's a total thinker, And so he's just like, hey, this is what you're going to do. You can put a lot of different stuff on up somebody's bike. And if they can't, or if you crash, right, mid-moto, and you bend your lever or do something or tweak the front end, you're like, for that first lap, maybe you're like, dude, I can't, right? And then you get used to it, and then you're like, oh, I didn't even think about it after that. And I think that's with anything, like they probably had a theory of like, man, if we make this really tight, it might stay in the rut better, or you might not get as much head shake, and they might go like, no, I don't like that, and then no, you're running it because this is going to be better, and then they get used to it, and then it's good. Yeah. Like I think a lot of that happens, but it definitely is a little different.
Speaking of Darren, where does he rank? Like you've been around for a long time. Like, have you ever seen a dad that's like him in terms of, because we all know the moto dad for one, like that's a characterized figure within the sport that it's like, hey bro, like just let your kid do their thing. It's over. Like you did a good job. Like you got him here, you got him to the dance, hands off the wheel. Let the professionals take it from here, And you would say for 99.9% of people, that's the best route to take. That's the most balanced route to take. That's the route that would guarantee that you don't run into like some of the money issues that people have run into in this sport, and just the generally letting your kid have a chance to like become not a kid and stand on their own 2 feet, And so we know that guy. And then there's Darren, who seems like he's kind of broken the mold. And man, I know there's a lot of amateur parents that are trying to be Darren Lawrence, and like there's going to be a lot of Darren Lawrence ripoffs that start to try and make their way into Supercross. But for someone like you that's just seen so many generations of riders and parents and those relationships, like what's your thoughts on the way that he's able to interact with like the boys and the team?
I think that, for one, to be Darren Lawrence, you'd have to be very genuine. You got to be a genuine person. You got to be in it
for the right reasons.
For the right reasons, and not only that, but the way that he grew up and the way that he has raised the boys too. Like Darren doesn't really care that much about money. Like as long as they have enough to survive it. They've been through the road of not not having a lot, right? Yeah. And the boys get like, they got. They have basically matching Ferraris. I don't know some of the things that they've earned, by being so successful. Like Darren doesn't give a crap about that.
He still just rocks up in the same truck.
He doesn't care. Like he like Jett's got this new, Rolls Royce, whatever, and he's just like, yeah, that's lame. Like he's got his Camaro, and that's way cheaper, but he's into the engine and tuning it and making a list. And his favorite thing I think right now is they did invest some money and buy that
big ass water truck.
I mean, he is stoked on that thing.
Yeah.
So for him, like he's that kind of person that's grown up, and he is just totally fine with having just enough to get by, working on the farm, using his hands, getting dirty, doing all those kind of things, and making, like progress, and rather than, now having the money or trying to buy these things or getting expensive things, like that's not for him. He doesn't care. So first off, you got to be willing to be that guy, right?
True.
Yeah. And then also he is, he's like Mr. MacGyver, he's like, he likes to try to fix and do these things. And if there's an issue, he wants to be able to help solve them. So he like gets super invested. He's like, obviously like such a thinker, like he's like, what if maybe this is why this is happening? And he's got his own theories and everything. So I think that the way that he works is a little bit different than a lot of people, because he has theories and all these things, but he wants to have discussions about them. And if he might come to us and go, hey, I think that our bike would be better in the whoops if, when I watch them ride, and he's watched them ride every day.
Yeah.
So he's seen every little thing that they've done. And I can kind of relate, because with my son, I'm watching him, like a hawk, like we're doing hockey, right? I'm watching every little thing he does, and I'm going, okay, what can he do better? He needs to do this better. How can I teach him how to do that? I can't tell him and yell at him. He's not that kind of kid. Like I can't go, freaking do it, dummy. Some parents can do that to their kid, and they respond. Yeah. Chad was like that. His dad would be or tell him that he can't do it and really get them really pissed off. And then they just
Chad runs on aggression.
Yeah. And then there's kids that just doesn't work with, and my son's one, and it's kind of like I think Jett's the same. You got to try to make it fun for them and do things like that. And hopefully it comes, I think with Jett, a lot of those things he watched Hunter, and then it would come pretty naturally, but, he's good at that and having those discussions, and we can kind of like go back and forth. And if we have a reason why we know that it won't work, or if we tried it and this is why, you show him that you took these steps and why it didn't work. And he's like, I got it. All right, cool. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, let's not go that way. Let's go maybe something else that,
and that's just full humility.
Yeah, exactly.
And being in it for the exact right reasons.
Right. And he really wants to make improvements, and it has nothing to do with an ego or him, just being a hard ass and going like, no, like, we're going to do this my way or whatever. He's able to be a teammate rather than just like, the guy that's making all these decisions and stuff. So it makes it easier to work with him when you can have real conversations and discussions rather than, him just trying to be the boss, kind of
force his ideas on you kind of thing. And how much impact does he make, do you think?
A lot, actually. And I mean, because I think he makes impact with the actual motorcycle, like whatever, but the biggest impact he makes is with his boys, like I've said this to him a bunch of times, and I've gone to him for advice on parenting, because the fact that the boys are willing and like listening to him. I mean, that doesn't happen very often, like with any kid. Like I said, like with my kid with hockey, and if I'm trying to tell him, like, and I play hockey, so I know, and I'm like, dude, you got to do it this way. And he's just like looking at me like, and it freaking pisses you off, because I'm like, dude, I'm also like, tell him like, how good are you at hockey and how good am I? Pretty freaking like a lot better than you. Shouldn't you listen to me? And he's still just like, it's just typical kid with your dad. You got to have somebody else do it. Yeah. But they don't mind listening to Darren at all. And they take what maybe they'll give him some crap, but.
No, you are right.
Yeah. He talks to them, and he's able to have that relationship with them where he can sit them down and go, no, like, this is why this, and you need to do this. And, even testing, he'll be like, Jett was right. Like last week, we were at the test track, and actually at this point, I wasn't even there on that day. But they were saying that he's trying some parts or Hunter was trying some parts on his bike, and Jett's like done riding, and he's done for the day. And he's like, hey Hunter, or hey Jett, come over here and test Hunter's bike, and I want you to see if you feel whatever it is that Hunter's feeling. And he's like, no, I'm good. I'm done. I'm not riding anymore because I'm beat or whatever. And Darren can just be like, let me rephrase that. Get your ass over here and ride Hunter's bike and tell us what you think. And he's like, like that kind of stuff, can only happen if Darren's there to do it. Because what are they gonna do? Fire him?
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff he's super valuable at. And like, luckily, both of them like the same direction and bike. Like you.
Okay.
Like, like if one guy rode like Vurbmoto and then the other guy rode like, Ken Roxon, you probably couldn't set the bike up the same, right? But luckily they got the same technique basically, like you said earlier, and they seem to usually like the same thing. Although I think, Hunter's shock's maybe not as stiff as Jett, and might be because of the height and the weight, and he's able to load it. But for the most part, they're almost identical. So they can go back and forth, which helps them, because then, it's like you have a clone of yourself telling you, like agreeing with you, going, yeah, that was better. Or like, no, you're right. That does feel a little weird. Maybe we should keep working on it, stuff like that. But without Darren there kind of like facilitating that, it doesn't happen. So, and then he's also, man, with their confidence and all those things like that, he should really get like another career in like motivational speaking or something like that. Maybe not speaking like to a group of people, but like
just like a mentorship type of
exactly
dude.
Yeah,
he's unreal.
Yeah, he's awesome. And the way he's able to talk, and like motivate people, I definitely study him, quite a bit.
It's funny, like, again, because my wife's just so on the outside, and like she was at that shoot in Florida with us, and that we left, and we were driving out of the compound, and she knows I'm close and I've known him forever and stuff, and she's just like, well, pretty obvious why the boys are so good. And it was just out of nowhere, and I'm like, oh, why? She's like, how's the dad? She's like, Darren's amazing. Like he is like, she could just see how he rubbed off on those guys, and it's just, the dude. And it's funny because to me, like, that's just a salt of the earth, like we would say, that's a salt of the earth Aussie bloke.
Heck yeah.
Like he's the guy. My dad's very similar in a lot of ways, like just that MacGyver kind of like that.
Same with mine.
That spirit, and like there's something about in Oz, it's like very common to do a trade. So you don't go to university,
right?
Like you just
tradie school.
Yeah. So it's like year 10, you're 15 years old, and then you're just a man. Like you're working. My dad was a boilermaker. So he was just welding, at 15, he just goes, and you're just around these like old school hard men from when you're a young dude.
Yeah.
And like Darren has like that Aussie grit.
Yeah.
And it's like you're starting from the bottom, and there's, you don't have money, you don't have career options, you don't, like, there's just all of these like limits in a way put on you, just of like where you are, the country you're born, the time you were born in. Like, so he's such an amazing product of that time.
Yeah.
Do the most with what you got, and you haven't got much, and you work all day, and it's all on you. Like, I mean, it's one of those things, like, as I got a bit older, I look back at my dad and my child. It's all those things you said, with like your son, like dad used to race Supercross and Motocross in Australia. I wouldn't listen to anything he said, but it's like that old school Aussie kind of upbringing. And I just think Darren's like such an awesome example of that. And it's like, it's rare in Oz now, like that time, like he's from a period of time that created like a really, unique type of dude. And it's like, he just comes across as such a special guy, like whether you interact with him just on a personal level, or if it's like meeting your wife or your kid or whatever, and then on like the technical motorcycle level, and then like that motivational speaker level. It's just like, it's got to be such a crazy part of their success.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And then to keep the boys level-headed enough, even when they have all this success, to, you know, like be at home and still have to do the dishes and things like that that they do, you know, whatever. And their personality-wise, they're obviously way different, you know, with Hunter being already basically a man at whatever age he, you know, what is, and living on his own, where Jett's like, nah, we're not there yet. Which is cool. Like, you know, like, it's cool to see, but that's where he, you know, having to balance, like I said earlier, when you have a kid that needs to kind of get that kick in his ass to like get to where he is, versus a kid that isn't going to respond to that at all. And that's kind of where I feel like I need to be at with, as a manager, with like just employees too, you know. Some guys are hard enough to like, you got to like be on them and kind of talk crap a little bit to them, you know. Other guys are not the same, you know, so you got to treat them differently, and finding what that is tough. And that's the kind of stuff, like for him, 2 different types of boys, they take 2 different types of upbringing, you know, or like teaching, and he's really good at that. So that's where I've kind of tried to learn from him a little bit.
So switch gears a tiny little bit on you.
Yeah.
I want to talk about some music stuff with you.
Oh, okay.
So you've been playing guitar for what, like 15 years?
Yeah, 07 when I worked for K-Dub.
Yeah.
I that whole Supercross season, Guitar Hero was like big.
Yeah.
And me and one of my really good friends, Chris Layton, he was driving the Geico truck or Factory Connection, whatever we were sponsored with at the time, and I was in with Wyndham in one trailer, and then he was driving the 250 trailer. And so, like I said, like we were like super tight, right? So then we got into Guitar Hero, and then we would have it. And like at the time with the TVs in the hotels, you'd have to like, you know, like bypass the little, like there was some kind of like protector, right? So that you couldn't like put in your own crap. So we had to like jerry rig that thing to make it work. And like every hotel we were at, dude, we'd just be jamming. and we started getting like pretty good to the point where it was like almost embarrassing, you know, or like, you're spending way too much. Cause I was with them on the road a lot. Like I drove the semi, all these things, like, you know, I'm not sure if I was supposed to be, but you know, like it was awesome. And then, at some point I'm like, dude, this is dumb. Like I'm my hand
so good.
Well, I'm like getting good. Like,
thing.
Like I got like the timing down. I've always wanted to play guitar. I had like an acoustic that I borrowed from my buddy for a couple weeks. And I remember I'd learned like a couple little like licks or riffs or whatever, but barely anything. And it was like cool, but I didn't have the discipline to like just go for it. And so in 07, I decided, I'm like, screw it, dude. I'm getting a guitar. I'm going to take like lessons. I'm just going to like commit to like learning how to play. So at Detroit in 2007, I remember we went to a Guitar Center. I bought a Les Paul.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and then I bought like this amp, like whatever, with kind of the typical style of practice amp that everybody gets with the different, you know, sounds and everything. And then I started taking lessons from a guy that I knew in Torrance by Honda. One of the kids that worked with us, his brother was an awesome guitar player, Jason Baxter, and so I took lessons from him like once a week, and like just really kind of like committed to like, all right, dude, I'm going to do the not so fun stuff, like the finger practices and everything. And then also, you know, like getting to play some riffs too. So yeah, I started playing then, and then I played quite a bit, not like tons. It's not like I was in a band or anything like that, but just, you know, got better and better. And then I still have guitars and stuff. I just don't play that much anymore, but I still pick it up every once in a while. So yeah, super into that.
What sort of music did you like playing the most? Like what sort of style did you end up when it was just free time playing guitar?
Yeah, it kind of like it kind of goes between like Alice in Chains, like you know, like grunge and even some of those 90s bands that I was obviously into, Metallica, of course, Guns N' Roses, kind of the typical guitar stuff. And then the more I got into playing guitar, and you know, not just acoustic, but you know, playing electric stuff, I wanted to play a little bit more heavy metal stuff. So that kind of stuff. But then, dude, I'm all over the place. Like I could play or it could be like Leonard Skinner type of stuff, or whatever. I'll listen to almost anything, but it ends up being something like that, or like you know, learning some Beatles song or something like that. Especially when you're going, Like I don't pick up acoustic or electric that much because it just, nobody wants to hear an electric when you're just jamming like in the house. But acoustic's fine, so I'll grab that in the morning when I'm drinking my coffee or something like that.
That's sick.
Yeah.
It's funny, like when you were saying that you were playing guitar and stuff like that, I was like, I've only just started playing again. So I played, when I was a kid, I played like the whole way through at school, but I had lessons for like a little bit when I think it was like grade 4 or something like that. But I didn't really enjoy the lessons. So when I had like an electric and a acoustic guitar when I was a kid, but I just tried to learn songs. Like I never actually learnt music and learn. Did you learn much of that?
No, I mean, I just do. When I was going to learn, I was just learning tabs, stuff like that. I mean, learning the music part of it didn't seem like it was like worth it for just playing guitar for fun. Like, it's not like if I was going to be trying to be like a piano guy or playing like, legit, like even like a lot of the rock stars, right? Or top rock guys, they don't know how to read music.
Yeah.
If you do, you're like pretty special, it seems like. But yeah, so I never really like took too much time to learn that.
Yeah, it's funny, that's what got me back into it. Like this time around, it was only like a couple months ago, I just randomly started watching, because I've always just loved music my whole life. And I started with like rap songs. I'd like be listening to so much Drake, and I'm like, this guy's so fucking good. Like, how is he this good at like making songs? And so I would just like be listening to it all the time, and I'd stop listening to it to listen to the music. I'd more be like trying to figure out like what he's doing, like the different cadences, like where he's rhyming. So I just kind of started geeking on that, and then I randomly a couple months ago just started watching, like, because there'd be so much stuff that I knew, but I knew like from tabs and from like it was all memory. Like there's still, even now, like I can still play like the Unforgiven solo.
Oh really?
Which like I could never pick up a guitar. Well, yeah, it'd be it would have been, I don't know, maybe like 10, 15 years since I played guitar, and I could still play that because it took me so long to learn how to play it. I can just pick up any guitar anywhere and play that. And there's like a few other like little things. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know why. I just got like super interested in like the musical theory side of it and like more guitar theory. So yeah, only a couple months ago, I've just started like, I'm not trying to learn any songs. Yeah. I'm just get with coffee in the morning. Yeah. And I'm just like, okay, what's this chord progression? Why do these notes go together? Like what notes make up this? And then like trying to find the pentatonic scale, like up and down and across, like then actually learn the fretboard. Like, so anyway, I'll just,
that kind of stuff I do know.
Okay.
Like, yeah. When it comes to like reading music and all that, like, you know, I don't really know much of that, but I did learn quite a bit of the notes, you know? Yeah. And then, like some scales and things like that. And obviously the different types of chords and why they work, and major, minor and diminished or whatever. And, you know, like a lot of those circle of fifths too, like why all those things go together. But that's where it started getting like, probably I needed to kind of like elevate to another level. And if I wanted to be good, what would have really like helped me was if I could have, you know, met some people, kind of been in some kind of band, even if it was just for fun. Yeah. And to be with some people that knew, you know, like what was going on. So they could kind of go like, we're going to do this, but this is your deal and you're not doing that right and whatever. So that would have been, you know, a whole nother thing. But then, you know, like the job, the life, you know, getting married, things like that, like priorities change, you know? So, so now I'm just like, it's fun when I have some friends and we have a little jam room at my house. So just the other night, actually, my buddy was over and we went out in the jam room and, you know, his wife was like singing and stuff like that was fun, you know, like just, you know, after a couple of drinks. So.
Yeah. That's pretty much how I like what I want to do is just basically have a little room, little studio, and just like basically go in and just like play some chords on the piano, loop it, you know, fuck around on the guitar and just see what works
Right.
when it comes to, you know, just more that theory side. I just feel like it's just some random itch to scratch that,
Yeah.
like, because I played for so long, but I forgot everything basically. And like technically, like I can still, you know, move my fingers around, and like there's definitely a bunch of chord progressions where it's like you got that muscle memory sort of no matter what. But yeah, I just got very, I don't know, like almost wanted to like relive my childhood. It's like, oh, I can buy the amps, I can buy this, I can buy whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like, it'd be fun to go back and kind of learn it. It's such a cool skill to have.
Yeah, for sure. I would love to like play like, or get into like piano and try to learn that, because you can play piano anywhere and everybody's like, you don't even have to play anything as long as you kind of got some stuff together. People are like happy to hear it.
Yeah.
You know, whereas not a lot of other instruments are like that, you know. Definitely not with the guitar. Like if you're going to play something on guitar, it kind of needs to sound correct for people to be like, okay, cool. Like, let me hear more. You know, like most people are like, you know, you play some guitar stuff or whatever, and they're like, okay, yeah, unless they're really into it, I guess. But and drums, like you can't play drums when people are like into it. You know?
Yeah.
That's got to be special too. But piano, though, you can do that almost anywhere.
Have you? You know, it's like, it's just funny because I've kind of only like just gone back into this world. But you see, like, is it Tim Henson? Is that his name?
I'm not sure.
Oh man, there's a Polyphonia. You know that group? Man, did you do like the YouTube thing with guitar? And
yeah.
Like, man, I've kind of just gone back into the rabbit hole. I cannot believe what people can do on a guitar now.
Oh, yeah.
It is insane. I think Tim Henson, I think the guy's name is, but there's like videos. I'll show you some links after this. There's like videos of him as a kid, and it's like him playing like the Metallica and all that at like 10 years old.
Yeah.
And just shredding. And so now he has a band called Polyphonia, and it's basically just like a guitar band. It's just like the ultimate guitar flex for 6 minutes. And then there's just all these videos of people like trying to break down like how to play it and all that sort of stuff. But man, I just could not believe it. Like just the level that generation. And it makes sense because it's silly as it sounds, like Guitar Hero. Like I remember I wasn't really, once I left school, because we had school bands and all that sort of shit. Once I left school, I moved away from my parents. I don't even know where the guitars are now. Like, they probably went to, you know, Lifeline or whatever. And you move on. But I remember I'd play Guitar Hero and be like, this actually isn't that far off, like actually playing guitar, really.
Yeah.
Like really, you know?
Yeah.
And so yeah, that obviously was like the Stasic of instruments, to where like in mountain biking now, like Jackson Goldstone's a dude that's like just fully ripping, and he's like a fucking Strider kid, you know, like, so the progression with like things like the internet and things like Guitar Hero, it's like you just end up speeding up the evolution of that discipline by so much.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, some of the guys on it almost makes you you know, question if you even want to get into it, because there's so many people that are so damn good, and they're nobodies, you know, like so it like when you see that and you're like, how is that guy not famous? Or, you know, so it's just like, man, you got to be doing something different than everybody. You almost got to get a little lucky, I'm sure. I mean, trying to become a musician and make it is got to be freaking 1 in a million.
It's insane, eh? And like that's funny. So I'm just going into like the whole YouTube rabbit hole with the guitar thing, and then I'm like, I literally have that thought. I'm like, do I really, like my wife was saying, like, we're staying at friends and he's got a guitar, and we're there for like weeks before I even picked it up. She's like, just pick up the guitar and play it. I'm like, I don't even know if I want to now. Yeah. Like I've just seen all this, and it's like
discouraging.
How good can you get? And like with jiu-jitsu, I've been doing that for like 6 years. And it's like, fuck, the amount of effort that it took to get good at that. But that was sort of one of the things where I was like, oh, I got pretty good at that. And it was, you learnt the language, you know, so it's like, it's got this physical component to it that you have to do. But I basically went so deep on the theory of it and like the learning and the study that you just end up being able to like speak the language. So like you do the thing physically, and it's all coming from like the the kind of background knowledge.
Yeah.
So then I was like, man, maybe that's just like the way that you do it. So that's it, kind of just piqued my curiosity. But you're so right. You see those dudes on YouTube and you're just like, what is the point of learning fucking scar tissue by Chili Peppers right now?
Yeah.
You know?
That's crazy. You had Sete Gibber now?
Yeah.
He was here?
No, I did that in Spain.
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. Like I was scrolling through your thing and I'm like, I got to listen to that guy because watching him and Rossi battle back in the day, you know. I borrowed a CBR 1000 like Triple R to come here, you know.
Oh.
And because I didn't want to sit in traffic, right?
I wondered what bike you actually rode.
Yeah. So I just borrowed, and it's like all that unbelievable, you know, like thing is freaking spaceship. So it's just like blows me away that that you can even buy that thing for the street because it's so badass. Like it's like, you know, Star Wars when the things come, like they're going to light speed and it goes, like if you want it, that is it, you know. It's crazy. But anyways, that made me think of that because that Gibber now thing, I got to listen to that because he never won after Rossi told him he would never win again, huh?
Dude, great, man. It's gnarly too, like that. Have you listened to it yet?
I haven't listened to it.
Okay.
I just remember watching those races, and then when him and Rossi get into and
I think
Gibber
it was like
smashed him.
it was Spain too.
Oh, really?
I'm pretty sure it was Jerez.
Yeah,
where that went down.
And then,
hometown. Like,
yeah, and he told him he'd never win again, and then he never did, and he retired. Like,
well, I think like I won't spoil it all for you if you go back and listen to it, but that really I think that killed him inside because more from not the past and everything, but like I think he expected the sport would act differently because it was pretty gnarly. Like that was like some Vince Freeze shit.
Yeah.
And it's like that wasn't really a thing in the sport. And I think he'd gone his whole life thinking he was doing a certain sport. Yeah. And then that one thing was like, nah, bro. We're here for Rossi. Like we don't give a fuck about what's right or wrong. I think that was like literally this is wrong.
Yeah.
And he just fully.
Nobody did anything.
And then I think it just like killed his vibe, eh?
Yeah, that's crazy.
But yeah, he's such a nice guy. We actually went to, after the Spanish F1 a couple of years ago, we went to his house and rode. Like he's got like he's actually got the little Honda.
Really?
Yeah. I'll send you some pictures.
Like go-kart track style?
Yeah. So he's got the sickest track. And then he's got these little Honda.
NSR?
Yeah, like the little mini bike kind of deals.
Like street bike or a little dirt bike?
It's like a little road bike.
Yeah.
Like a 110 version of
NSR probably.
Is that what they are?
Yeah, I think so. At least they're NSR 50 and then whatever. Yeah.
But yeah, so we all went and rode those.
That's
and like,
so
man, he has like this whole philosophy. Like I left there just with the biggest like man crush on Saturday. I was like, you are, like, I would love to be like you.
Yeah,
you are the man.
That's cool.
And yeah, he's just like the nicest guy. He still rips, dude. He took us all, it was like me, Cooper, and Danny Rick. And he took us all on the back. He had a Motard 450 with like, it was a 2-up and it had these bars on it that you kind of would lean off. And basically it was like to teach you how much you could lean on a road bike. Have you done any track days?
I've done, yeah.
Yeah.
Not in a while, but I used to do it quite a bit.
Oh, like you were like into it and doing it?
Yeah,
Oh,
like me and my brother would like in 2003, 4, 5, 6, something like that. Did quite a bit of them. So, and a couple of little like the novice races, whatever.
Oh, really?
But it was like to get your racing license, you had to do like these 3 races. So it wasn't like a real thing, but it was still, at least I got to line up and do a start.
Yeah, that's gnarly.
Crush everybody on the start because nobody knows how to start, apparently. After moto, you know, like those, I'm like, dude, what are you guys doing?
That's awesome.
But yeah, that was super fun.
But yeah, you know, like you just almost like stand the bike up and throw as much weight as you can on like the inside of the bike. I think that to teach a person that, very, very counterintuitive, especially if you rode dirt bikes forever.
Right.
So he basically just chucked us all on the back of this thing. He's like, make your head touch the ground, basically. And he's like, I'll stay up straight. Like how much this bike turns is based on like where you're going to put your weight. Yeah. But yeah, we all just left there just being like, holy fuck, what a legend.
Yeah.
So
dang, that's cool.
I didn't know you were that into the road bike stuff.
I went to McDowan has a place too, you know, with a go-kart track, and it's all through the hills there.
Have you been to it?
I've been there twice, actually.
Sick.
One time with Jeremy when we were in Australia racing, and one time with Chad. So we got to drive his go-karts, and they were monsters.
Crazy.
They were 450s, yeah. And like, I remember, like, you couldn't use first gear, don't even try. Second gear was this like death machine because it was spinning everywhere, and then third gear was just traction. Oh my god, it was so fast. But they were kind of like they were a little bit worn out, but damn, they were fun.
He's still got that place.
Yeah.
It's all that track and stuff still there. You should see. Do you follow Jack's career at all?
Yeah, I was, because he was doing like trying to get the Formula One, right?
Yeah, I think he won F2 on the last F2 race.
Yeah. I've seen his name. That he's so yeah. Hopefully at some point he'll
Well, I think
make it.
I'll check before this gets posted. But I think he just signed his Alpine deal.
Oh yeah.
So he's like reserve. So he's not racing anything next year. So he's like in the just full time in the reserve. Like, and I think he's with them for a bit. But I don't want to speak to our school there.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's like crushing it. And man, from when he was like 12, we'd be going over there and like just watching, and he fully sends that track, dude. It's absolutely insane. So I'd say he would have flogged every single cart that was on the property.
Yeah. At the time, I remember he was just a little kid there that was hanging out, you know. So it was kind of cool. And I remember being there with, you know, he's got his helicopter in there, whichever one at the time, right? Because I think he was like, but that was an experience, getting to see all his GP bikes at his house. And
how amazing is it?
Yeah, what a legend. That's awesome.
He is one of the gnarliest dudes I've ever met.
Yeah.
There's not many people I get fully intimidated by. I've known him forever. I still get intimidated.
Yeah.
He's just so gnarly.
Yeah. 100%.
Well, mate, we just did 3 hours, and this was unreal.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. It was fun.
Love to get you back on again at some point. I'm glad you come in before A1. Any predictions? You want to throw some predictions out at us before we wrap it up?
I don't know. I mean, I think what I can say is that just getting through the first race, you know, is important for me. Like, even if it's not the best result, just getting through and getting the season going. I think that if we're in the top 5 at least, you know, I'll be happy. But of course, you know, with the momentum that we have, I'd be surprised if we don't have a good weekend, a really good weekend with the podium. But then again, I'm really excited for Joe. And and the way he's been riding, and you know, his, not just that, but like his whole attitude and everything, and him coming back to Honda now finally, it's like, I think it would be such a cool story to see him be able to win. So just excited.
He's already got Deegan running.
So, but his mechanic broke his femur, so they had to go to East.
Is that what it is?
No, I don't know. But you know, Duff, I
know, poor bugger.
I know, yeah, landed on some dude's bike, he said. But
he's the best dude, eh?
Yeah,
he
cool.
is such a good dude.
Yeah, he was on our team in 20, you know, with Brayton.
Oh yeah.
So he's a character for sure.
Yeah.
So anyways,
so that's the reason why. So Deegan's not dodging Joe. It's because of Duffy.
There's no way he could let somebody else take his rider to A1.
That's true.
Yeah, that's what I told him anyways.
No, I think Joe's in for an awesome season.
Yeah.
Like, he just got stronger and stronger and stronger last year, you know, back with you guys. I think the environment is obviously going to be rad for him. And then what about Hunter? Your expectations?
Yeah, I know.
He's flying under the radar.
For sure, yeah. And he seems like, with the amount of talent that there is, I think that, you know, I think everybody's prediction is like kind of maybe a 4 to 8 kind of guy. And that's probably where he should be. But he's so gnarly at, like, he's kind of like Chad, where he has so much belief in himself, and he won't be happy if he's not towards the front of the pack. So I think I'm gonna like agree with him that I think he will be, you know, really close to the front and a podium contender every weekend. And And I just think that he was so good at Paris with like 2.5 weeks on the bike, you know?
Crazy, eh?
Yeah. And so now he's had time to get used to the bike, tweak on the bike, because he really didn't have much time to do any.
He was kind of just riding Jett setup, basically.
Yeah, basically. And even Jett didn't have a ton of time to test Supercross with whoops and everything compared to, you know, like having a setup that we'd already ridden with last year or anything. So, shoot, I mean, I think it's gonna be interesting to see what kind of starts we get. I think we've worked hard on that too. So, man, I don't want to say too much, but I'm pretty excited. I think it'll be good.
Sick. Well, mate, thanks so much.
Cool. Yeah, thank you.
That was awesome.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Legend.
Yeah.
We're excited to announce the launch of our new membership site, gypsytales.com, packed with exclusive content and perks that you won't find anywhere else. This is your chance to become a part of the Gypsy Gang. And as a special bonus, if you sign up to an annual membership, you'll be entered into the draw to win our custom-built TC125. Gypsy Gang.